anyone would listen to him, and I think to myself, your voice sucks, Aaron. What are you doing?
You've got one of the best broadcasting voices of all time.
Oh, yeah, man.
You're right
so
up there
good.
with Brokaw and Cosell.
He struck him out. I'll be like Harry Carey.
Yeah.
Let me hear you.
I don't know how Harry Carey rose through the ranks because...
Here's how you rise to the ranks. Be around when TV is born.
That's true.
And be young and handsome, and then grow old in your role until you're like 1,000.
But like Vin Scully, that's a voice.
Yeah.
That's a voice.
Smooth, silky smooth.
Yeah. I have Vin Scully reciting the Rosary. I listen to it sometimes.
Weird.
Yeah.
Why? Just to give you...
I bought it. I saw, hey, Vin Scully, that was when he retired. He wanted to be, because he's a devout Catholic. And he put out a recording. Vin Scully recites the Rosary.
That's strange. Does that give you like spiritual upliftment?
Yeah, it does. I like, because Vin, it's
At
like...
the end of it, does he go, holy cow, I love the Lord. Something like that.
It would be great if he did. I wish he did. Maybe that'll be volume 2. So it looks like we are back. And you ready for Amigos?
And this time,
yeah, hopefully we won't lose contact again. I hate that the wheel's going to be gone soon.
listen, you made the choice.
Kills me.
This was your choice. Your time is
I may just sit and spin the wheel on a stream.
That's weird.
Just spin it over and over again.
We haven't announced that four-way. I guess we just did.
Well, they'll be able to find out sooner or later.
Like it's a big effort deal. No, not ARG. We can't come on.
Have you seen my stream from last night? My Chibi Robo stream?
I saw it. I saw its existence. Then I read what it was. I'm like,
it's probably not up your alley. Probably not your kind of game. So it looks like we're back. I'm turned up. I feel like I'm turned up too loud, but it's only when I get out of control.
Completely off.
Maybe I should.
You turn me off every time I see you.
Open you. All right. Okay.
Just keep sucking it down, boat.
You know where I drink Diet Mountain Dew mostly?
Can. That's a double joke. Bam, bam. You get it? Because it's in a can?
Oh, and yes. I've never been one of those people that eat on the toilet. I've always thought that was weird.
That is a...
Like, I know there are people that they like doing that, but that's not my bag.
The first time Chad, I have a buddy named Sean. He's this bald guy. He was a mover. Now he drives a truck. Real nice guy. But he was at my house one time. The first time Chad met him, Chad said, I was sitting in the living room and the bathroom door opened up and this bald guy walked out eating a roll. And it was a dinner roll. And that was Sean coming out of the can. He was eating a dinner roll.
Yeah.
Sexy.
Yeah. But where I normally drink Diet Mountain Dew is at Graziano's. That's one of the few places that have it on tap.
It's good out of the tap.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That place is, I like that place, but it's pricey.
Yeah, yeah.
Everything's pricey. It's killing me. I'm so broke. Good God.
When's Luke's birthday? It's already passed,
September.
right? Oh, it's coming up.
Oh, yeah.
Is it already started?
You know, I wasn't going to put up a pool this year. Mm-hmm. And Teresa's like, hey, are we putting up a pool? I was like, wait, I thought we weren't. No, I want a pool. Oh. So luckily I bought one last year. I left it at Granny's house, and I was like, well, I'm going to go pick that pool up tomorrow. So today I was like, tomorrow I'm going to pick that pool up. Granny, she was there. She goes, I was like, what? She goes, well, that pool's kind of small. I was like, you're killing me. You're physically killing me.
They're gagging up on you. Everybody's gagging up on you.
I don't have huge pool money, for God's sakes. I'm a state servant. Good God, man.
I think they should put that on your tombstone.
I'm a
Aaron
state
Dowdy.
servant. Good God, man.
Oh.
Are you going to start this show, or are we just going to sit here cackling like idiots?
I prefer the latter, but I guess we'll talk about
Listen,
Lethal Weapon.
I played this game, and by God, we're doing a show about it.
All right. Here we go. I'm giving us a solid 10 seconds.
Yeah, because you cut yourself off last week, too.
Yeah, like I say, I always think I'm giving myself enough time, but I never do. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Amigos. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
And today we're going to talk about Lethal Weapon.
Ooh.
Yippee-ki-yay.
That's a wrong series. That was Die Hard or Dead Hard.
What about I'm Too Old for This?
That's the right series. You got it there. You've never seen these movies, have you?
Gosh.
Bo, let me ask you a question before we get this show started. Name any buddy cop film you've ever seen.
Bad Boys 2.
You saw Bad Boys. Why would you go watch that and you haven't watched this? That's got violence and sex in it.
It was on a band trip.
What band were you in?
The
Motley
Hurricane
Crue?
Band. No, it was either band or show choir. And
They
were
showed
playing
that to kids on a bus?
Oh, we watched all kinds of. We watched Interview with the Vampire on the way to
Man,
Florida.
you can feel the lawsuits accumulating in the distance.
Yeah, in this day and age, you wouldn't be able to get away with that.
So what did you think of Bad Boys 2? That's got Will Smith and Martin Lawrence.
The violence wasn't over the top, and I liked the humor. I think both those guys are funny. I know it's not cool to like Will Smith, but I like Will Smith.
You're right. We should put out a disclaimer that normally you don't watch any violent films or films that have a lot of nastiness in them.
Right.
Do you? Boat watches a lot of PBS, for example. He watches
Songs of Praise on the BBC.
his favorite show, Lawrence Welk.
Yes.
Right.
Hey, all serious, I like Lawrence
I
Welk.
wasn't lying when I said that. So with this in mind, we chose this week. Whose game was Lethal Weapon, Boat?
This game came to us directly. I've already erased it. I'm gonna have to look it up again. This was this.
I set them up and they knock you out.
Well, I had it on the thing, and then when I erased, because I already put our notes down for our next show.
It doesn't matter. The point of the matter is, I'd never even heard of this game, but I had heard of the movie. So you're looking it up.
I'll look it up.
There's going to be heavy editing involved in this particular
Keep talking.
segment. So, so you've never seen the Lethal Weapon series?
No, never. It's a Christmas film, right?
No. What? It's not. It's Lethal Weapon. What sounds like Christmas to you in that?
I've always thought people say that it's like the best Christmas movie. I'm dead serious.
That's the best Christmas movie?
Yeah, because isn't it set during Christmas?
I thought Die Hard was set during Christmas.
Okay, I think this is what's happened. I've
Let
gotten
me ask you a
mixed up with
question.
Die Hard.
Who's the star of Lethal Weapon?
Mel Gibson.
Right. Now, who's the star of Die Hard?
Mel Gibson.
No.
It's the guy from Armageddon, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
It's that guy.
Danny Glover.
No. What? No.
Oh.
No. It's Bruce Willis. You know Bruce Willis? Ever heard of him? He sang, had an album.
I think we'll agree to disagree on this one. Who's Danny Glover?
Danny Glover's the other guy in Lethal Weapon.
Okay.
He's the one that's too old.
He's the one that's ready for retirement?
That's right.
Okay. I know about that. See, I'm with it. I'm hip.
You say that with no shorts.
I got shorts on right now.
No. They're aqua blue. They got little trees on them. Don't stand up, for God's sakes. And there goes the viewership for this week.
I think that this is one of my best looks ever, to be honest with you. I like the little palm trees on them. There's a Jens Linkman album that's got that same palm tree on it.
Uh-huh.
And then you already made fun of my shirt.
Well,
you don't like any of my clothes.
I like them. I like them on you.
Well, that's nice of you to say.
You got hair, too. You got that going for you.
Well, thank you.
Did you give up on finding this?
No, I'm still looking. You can keep talking.
So we're off the rails. They're early tonight. Just find the thing. You can do your magic.
I got it. Lethal Weapon. Tell me about it. It's ocean, right?
Well, it is. Let's talk about the movie.
Okay.
Lethal Weapon. So, I saw this movie when it came out back in the day. It was a Richard Donner joint. You know it's going to be solid action for sure. And it was out, and Warner Brothers put it out. This thing had a budget of $15 million and made $120 million. That's a huge amount of money, Bo. Just my point.
I wonder if that's why it had 3 sequels. Or there's 4 sequels now, right?
I think they're making a 5th.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, if you haven't seen the movie Lethal Weapon, it's a buddy comedy. It's probably one of the original buddy comedy movies, and it has Mel Gibson and Danny Glover.
This is a comedy?
It's a comedy dramedy. It's a dramedy.
Really? So it's like Bad Boys.
Yeah.
I always thought this was like an ultra serious, like Terminator type film.
No. And Gary Busey's in it, man. And
I like him.
He's completely out of his mind. So the premise of this flick is Mel Gibson plays this guy named Martin Riggs. Everybody calls him Riggs. This guy was a former like tough military guy. He was like a Green Beret or Ranger or something. And his wife gets killed, and he becomes suicidal. Okay. And what that means is he just takes crazy chances. He didn't give a crap if he lives or dies. He does crazy stuff.
Is he the lethal weapon?
He is. He's out of his mind. So they're like, listen, you need to go with Danny Glover. Danny Glover's character is getting ready to retire. He's like a 50-year veteran, right? And they figure they'll partner these guys up, and it'll calm him down. Basically, it doesn't work. If you've seen the movie, It's crazy time. And I will say, and this is before Mel Gibson was like public enemy #1. It's funny, there was a time where Mel Gibson was one of the most popular actors in the world.
Yeah. Think about his film, What Women Want.
No.
Oh.
What? Why would you think about that? Of always great hits?
That's
Braveheart? No.
We watched that in Coach McKinney's class. Did you have him for history in 11th grade?
No, I don't know who that is.
Yeah.
Braveheart. You watch that for history?
Yeah.
Because I've heard it's historically inaccurate.
Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it's Last of the Mohicans. Was that that's almost the same. That's not the same movie, is it? That's never mind. Just forget it. Move on. I seriously thought that those were the same film.
Last of the Mohicans, eh? You realize that the other movies doesn't have anything to do with Native Americans, right?
Oh boy. I get all confused. Movies are not my forte. Have you realized that?
Yeah, I've seen it now.
Okay.
So anyways, it's a good flick. I've seen it. I saw the second one. I believe the second or third one.
Is this your favorite Mel Gibson movie?
No. Of course not.
What's your favorite?
He was in Machete Kills.
Is that your favorite Mel Gibson movie?
Absolutely. He was great in that.
Is he in both? Is he in the first Machete?
No, of course not. No. That one had Steven Seagal. So I like that one too. But yeah. But Mel Gibson, lots of good stuff. Like I said, and if you've been living under a rock or whatever, you know, he had his run-ins with the press and he said some bad stuff. He's on the comeback trail.
Yep, he's on the comeback trail.
But he did some incredibly stupid things. God, what an idiot! He threw his career in the toilet. But this game and film predates his idiocy. So I just heard your door knock.
That's the ghost that lives upstairs.
Okay, fair enough, then.
I'm serious. Like, it'll knock every once in a while. It'll go away.
It wasn't the front door. Somebody knocking. No,
it was the basement door.
That's weird, Bode. So, we try to get into this. We got to do any news, anything?
You know, I forgot about the news.
Listen, we got to start this over.
No. I'm putting this up unedited.
No. We're starting this over. This is a disaster, Bode.
We're not starting it over.
Yeah, and also you're going to reset the stream because I just saw the thing flash across.
There's nothing flashing.
Stop the stream and then restart it.
It's fine. There's nothing bad going on.
Something happened just now. I saw.
You don't need to be concerned with what goes on over here. This is my world. That's your world.
That empty bottle is your world. I can tell we're off the rails here, Boat.
Okay.
Let's start this again.
No. Seriously, we shouldn't start it again. This is great.
No, Boat. This is no good. We've got to start it again.
Have you read the chat?
Yeah, we're gonna start this again. That's no good. We can't because this is completely.
Okay, if we start it over again.
Yeah, we're gonna start right now.
Okay.
Pull it together, man.
Okay.
Pull it together. Let me get my show notes up. All right. You ready?
Yep.
Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Amigos. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
And today we're going to talk about Lethal Weapon.
Beautiful. I used to like the movie. I did. It was good.
I've never seen it.
Yeah, I've heard. You want to talk about some news?
Let's talk about Amiga news.
Do we have any feedback you want to go over before we get into the news? Or are you saving that?
Well, we don't have any feedback.
Okay, fair enough. So this news week, it was a little light, but there was a couple things I thought was interesting. I'm just going to go right over it in order as to what I've got on the old Gambletron here. Now, listen, I enjoyed this. Duncan Stiles has been putting out some really good articles here recently. He wrote one this week, and it was on the game, and this is topical because we played this game during last year's Amigathon. No Second Prize. You remember that game?
It's a racing game.
It is a motorcycle racing game. It's probably the second best game Thalion ever did next to Lionheart, right, which is awesome. But this is that motorcycle game that used the mouse. You remember that one? And this is a really interesting article. He did a good job on it. I really liked that game. It was difficult to control, which is mentioned, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was a pretty fun game, and it's one that I've tried to play a few other times and just did horrible. Not good at it. But controlling a game with a mouse, I guess it's an analog surrogate, right? I mean, effectively, that's what they're doing with the mouse.
I've never been a fan of racing games that use the mouse. To me, I'd rather either use a joystick or even cursor keys is a better.
Well, again, I guess in a day where there weren't a lot of analog joysticks around, it's an interesting.
Well, I know, like Super Hang-On, it always had the option. You could use the mouse if you wanted to.
Yeah, and the this one would probably take some practice, But Duncan does a good job, real good article. I've noticed. I really like what he's been doing. He's doing some good stuff.
Man, he's in chat with us right now.
Yes, sir. Since we're going right down the line, we'll talk about our good pal, the Brutal Barracuda. He has produced another one of our mailbag moments. This time, this is when you got your the lovely gift of the Super Nintendo Mini, which was
an awesome gift from Christopher Hassel.
Yes. Don't ever hassle that guy. Now, here's something that it touched me deep inside when I saw this came out. Our good friend, the Dreamcatcher. He had to do it. It's an article devoted to Top Cat, Hanna-Barbera's Top Cat. Now
you're kind of an aficionado of Hanna-Barbera's.
I don't know if I'd go there. I do. I have watched a lot of Hanna-Barbera in my youth.
I just want to take a quick break. There's one part of our song that we're playing in band, and there's this part that goes. Do you know what that is?
No.
That's the Jabberjaws theme song.
See,
okay? And so I took a poll of my students, and I said, do you know who Jabberjaws is? Only one kid knew who Jabberjaws was. I figured he was like a national icon.
The funny thing about Jabberjaws, Hanna-Barbera had this gimmick, all right? I may be talking to you stuff you already know, but their gimmick was to take an animal and then get someone that it can replicate a famous person's voice and stick it on the animal. Top Cat was one. Jabberjaws was one. They've got a bunch of these guys. And Jabberjaws was basically Curly from the Three Stooges.
The kid mentioned that too. Right. He said he sounds like Curly from the Three Stooges.
That's exactly right. Now, and some of these guys, and Top Cat's example, are stars that I can't remember because they've been around for so long. I wish I could.
Like
Snagglepuss is another guy. Heavens to Murgatroyd. I don't know who he's doing.
He was Rich Little, right?
Rich Little was the impersonator. So no.
Oh, okay.
Unless Rich Little was impersonating the guy that they ripped it off of. But Hanna-Barbera cartoons are always sort of, I don't want to say they're second rate because that's not fair. They had a lot of big hits. They had your Scooby-Doos. They had your Flintstones. They're big.
I think it wouldn't be fair. It would be fair to say that their animation might have been second rate. The quality of their animation.
Well, it was a different era, but yes,
they were cranking out
too. Yeah,
they were cranking out content.
Even Fred Flintstone's a knockoff. And Barney, those guys are knockoffs too. So they were super famous. I don't guess Scooby's really a knockoff of anybody, but maybe he is. I don't know. You got to think that stuff came out in the '60s, and that's a long time ago, even for guys like us. It's a long run. But I like Hanna-Barbera stuff. Like I said, I mentioned before that I really dug Space Ghost and the Herculoids and some of their more. Johnny Quest was another one of theirs that I really liked. So, but anyway, Top Cat, one of their lesser known entries. And Dreamcatcher's all over it. I believe now, did not play the Top Cat game. I played Huckleberry Hound. That's the one I played. Now, Huck Hound's another one.
Less than ideal.
They've got all kinds of cats. It's like cats and dogs. Well, they got tons of them.
I was going to say, I think that they were more dog heavy because they were also, who was El Bongo?
No, you're talking about the donkey.
Yeah.
He was a donkey.
He was a donkey? Well, I thought he was a dog.
That guy's name, no, he was a donkey, I think, and his name was...
El Kabong?
El Kabong was his... That's what he was... It wasn't his name, though. Oh. He has a name. I can't remember his name. Boy, you put me on the spot here. But, yeah, that's another one. So those guys, just kind of a wacky cartoons. If you're into that sort of thing, or just, it's Dreamcatcher, enough said. Have a look at it. We also just released, we should mention our sister show, ARG Presents. This week, we got a little crazy, and we did a show on Virtual Boy that came out. I believe it just came out a while. It wasn't too far back. So if you're into ARG, give that a shot. I want to buy a Virtual Boy, but they're expensive, so it ain't probably going to happen anytime soon. You got anything we need to discuss on here?
I don't think so. I think we can dive right into this week's game.
You want to talk about the Amigathon real quick?
Oh, sure, absolutely. Yeah. So. Amigathon is quickly approaching. It is going to be on July 7th. And if you'd like to donate, you can go over to Extra Life. If you just Google Extra Life, charity Amigathon, then it'll go there. I'll put a link to it in the show notes too. For every $1 you donate, we will play 1 minute of your favorite Amiga game. We've already gotten enough donations to fill up 6 hours of content, but we will go on until, you know, as long as we need to, because we're raising money this year for the Children's Miracle Network of Hospitals, help a lot of sick kids. So if you feel froggy, you can head on over to extra-life.org and search up Amigathon and throw us a few bucks. Amigathon's always a good time. You can hang out with us in the chat all day. And don't forget when you donate to specify if your money should go to Aaron or me getting the pie in the face.
It should be both. Make your payments out to both pie in the face. No, Amigathon was a lot of fun last year. And I'll be the first to admit that I had no idea that we could even pull it off. I mean, I'll give you credit from a technical standpoint. You were a juggernaut of technical prowess last year.
I'm going to try and make it better this year.
And boy, we raised a lot more money than I thought we would. I wasn't sure. I remember telling Bo, man, I hope we get a couple people will give some money. And I believe before we started the auction, we were near $500, weren't we? So we were doing, and we're well on track this year to come up around that same area. And it really is for a good cause. Everything goes directly to charity. And you couldn't pick a better charity, I think, this year. You know, Children's Hospital, big deal, you know, it's nice. So if you feel so inclined to shoot us a few bucks, and hey, like I said, pick a game. If you want to see us suffer, pick a real dud. You know, if you want to be a real funny guy, you know, hey, 10 minutes of what's the worst game we did in the last year?
Oh, there's no question. Top Banana.
Top Banana. You could really screw us if you want to. Or if there's a game we haven't covered, you're like, these jerks. Because how many games did we cover last year that we ended up doing shows on? There were quite a few.
Yeah.
Or stuff that stuck in our back of our heads, exactly like we were talking about before with the motorcycle game. So it's a good way to get the game you want noticed, you know. So, but we appreciate it. It's great for charity and make you feel good.
Yeah, yeah. All right, Aaron. This week's game is Lethal Weapon. This game was suggested to us by Amigos Game Selection Committee member Figgy CTZ.
Easy for you to say.
So thank you, Figgy CTZ, for selecting Lethal Weapon. Aaron, what can you tell us about this one?
Well, Lethal Weapon is a game based on the film series. This game came out on the Amiga in '92, and it was developed by Ocean, which is unusual, believe it or not. They didn't do a ton of developing on the Amiga. They mostly published. Mm-hmm. I looked at what they actually had developed in-house, and some of these titles I was sort of surprised. They did Batman the movie and Batman. They did 2 Batman games. And they did Addams Family. They developed Addams Family.
Really?
So, yeah. So that's which we'd covered. I can't remember if we covered a Batman game on here. I can't remember if we did or not.
It's very odd that we haven't, but we haven't. We still haven't done that kind of the game that everybody associates most with the platform because of the bundle.
That's crazy. So I looked this over just to see if there was any interesting people pop up that worked on it. And one thing I did see was that a couple of people that worked on this, including the guy that did the graphics, Don McDormand, also did the graphics for Parasol Stars. And also the coder also coded Parasol Stars, which I know is one of your favorites.
I love Parasol Stars.
So that's kind of neat. Lethal Weapon ran on the ECS-OCS platform. And this was a conversion. I think this came over to the Amiga. I'm not sure where it was converted from or to, but it's probably the ST. You know, we either went to it or from it. This game came on several different platforms. The aforementioned ST, the C64 line, and DOS, of course, and the Super Nintendo. I actually looked at this on a couple of different platforms just to see what the differences were. And the Super Nintendo version was, looked very similar to this one. So I'm guessing, I know there were differences in different platforms into the game, and I can't go into great detail on it because I really only looked at the Amiga version, but I know there are similarities on other platforms. Now, the NES had a version of Lethal Weapon, but it's quite a bit different. I mean, it's a whole different game, effectively. So, for starters, let's talk about the film, as we mentioned earlier. In the show, the film was a very big runaway hit. It was released and directed by Richard Donner, very famous. Joel Silver was one of the producers, another very famous Hollywood fellow, and it starred Mel Gibson and Danny Glover. And they made it for $15 million. It made $120 million. It was a runaway hit. and it spawned a series that I believe is on its has 4 movies and is in line to have a 5th. I believe I just read the other day when I was researching this that they had decided to make the 5th movie, which will be sort of a comeback film for Mel Gibson, who ran in all the trouble.
Did you see who did the music in this?
I didn't see who did the music.
Turn your page back.
You're talking about who did the music in the game?
No, who did the music in the movie?
Oh, I didn't even look. Who did it?
Pretty big name there.
Eric Clapton.
Yeah.
There you go. Well,
no
there you
idea.
go. It's funny because I don't remember thinking, oh, I love the lovely tones of Eric Clapton as I watched this. I just remember people getting shot and screaming and wacky lines. The movie is about a guy named Riggs, who is a former military specialist whose wife gets killed. And so he goes kind of crazy and he's suicidal. And they team him up with a retiring 50-year police veteran and Danny Glover, and presumably to calm him down. It doesn't work. So instead, he drags poor Danny Glover through this movie, doing all these crazy high spots, while Danny Glover keeps talking about getting ready to retire. He wants to retire and not get killed, and he's got this crazy nut. So they didn't do him any favors. Big movie. It was a huge movie. And this game was actually released to coincide with the release of one of the films, which was Lethal Weapon 3. I believe, now it's been a while since I saw that one, but I think that is the one where America was introduced in a large way to Jet Li. Do you know who Jet Li is?
Yeah, he's a
martial arts aficionado.
Right, he's like the serious Jackie Chan.
Yeah, he sort of is. Yeah, he's a pretty serious guy. Something I didn't know about this, like I said, we'd mentioned that it was released on the NES in a different form, and there was a Super Nintendo version. There was an unreleased Master System version of this, which I thought was kind of interesting. Apparently, it was all but done, and it got canceled, and then no one has the ROMs for it anymore.
Wow.
That's kind of a bummer, isn't it? So, on to the game. What is this game? Well, I remember Boat described it to me in a conversation as Rolling Thunder-esque, right? And I don't know if I'm going to go that far.
I appreciate you taking my take away from me before I can say it.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Thank you.
No, you get nothing. You get because and I'll let you explain why you think that, because I'm going to explain why. For me, I didn't quite get the same vibe from it. The gameplay in this is actually kind of interesting. I kind of like the way you do it. So you start out at the beginning, and you're playing Mel Gibson's character, and you go and you're at an office building. It's the police station. And so you can go to, I believe there's 3 different people and get different missions. And you can, it's funny because I went to the first mission and I thought, well, they ask you if you want to accept it. And the first thing I did was no. I wanted to see what would happen. Nothing happened. So I thought, and so you can go and pick the mission 2 or mission 3. So I like the open-ended approach of the missions, which I thought that's a pleasant way to do it. Again, this is sort of, and we've seen a few Amiga games that let you pick the level, and it's always nice to be. It gives you some variety, if anything. When you're in the police station, there are several different rooms you can go into, and again, I just was exploring around. And one is the computer room where you can save your game and do options. I thought that was cute. One's a locker room, and it's sort of like when you go in the locker room, you sort of tag out, and you tag in Danny Glover's character, and so you're playing him. I guess for starters, did you see a marked difference between the 2 characters?
They blew it. They could have made this great, and they sucked it up. It's the same stupid game with both players. What they should have done was changed up the weapons, make your character act different, jump differently, move differently, so you can have your favorite, just like when you're playing a game like Super Mario Brothers 2 or something like that. The rumor is that one character can jump a little higher. I didn't see it.
I mean, if that's the case, it's a pretty small difference. So once you have selected the character, first of all, I like the fact that you get to at least pick the other guy. Now I don't know who's picking. I don't know if people are picking Danny Glover's character. In the movies, he was sort of the beat down character, and Riggs was the crazy man. But I usually played as Riggs just because I didn't feel like going to the locker room basically. So then you start once you pick a mission, you start the game, and the missions span from you're on boat docks, you're at construction sites, you're in the sewers. I mean, they didn't reinvent the wheel here.
Yeah, but I think that the scenes are done well. I think that everything is drawn well. I felt like this game had a pretty good amount of atmosphere. I mean, I haven't seen the film, but I'm sure that the locations in the film are similar, right?
Well, this was no, I don't think so at all. It's been since I saw the first one, but I know the third one. I mean, let's face facts. They're on a dock. They're in a sewer. I mean, yeah, those are generic locations. So I know for a fact in the Jet Li when they're on a boat for a big chunk of it. So yeah, I mean, yeah, but I mean, did they do that on purpose? They probably just said, okay, where are these guys going to go? Boat, construction site, sewer. When you're writing up one of these games, those are the three things I'd pick right away. Build office building. You got to put that one in there. Everything's always a building or a construction site. So you roll through these games, and you basically, this is a how to describe this? It's sort of, to me, it reminded me to a certain degree of sort of like a Elevator Action 2 type game. There's a lot of moving
vertical
platforms.
movement.
There's a lot of elevators, and your guy runs through. He can duck or he can stand. He can't shoot while he's ducked, that got irritating real quick because this is almost reminding me of those games where, like, what was the shooting game where you hit the pedal that can make you duck and then you could shoot? A Lethal Enforcers, I think. This is a lot like the 2D version, basically. You can duck or you can shoot. You can't do both. And so you had to be tactical in your approach. There's tons of bad guys with various weapons. Some guys throw dynamite. Some guys have a blowtorch, or a flamethrower, I should say. Some guys have just guns. And you roll through, and you get close to them, you can actually do karate on them or whatever. The levels look good. The music sounds good. And overall, the game has a pleasing look to it. It doesn't look cheap. In fact, it looks very console-like in a way, didn't you think? I had a look at this on the Super Nintendo just to compare the two, and I actually thought this looked better, which is unusual for the Super Nintendo. The sound effects are what you would expect. Like I said, they didn't really reinvent the wheel. As you go through here, you're collecting look like magnifying glasses. I guess they're like you're collecting clues to solve the crime. You're also collecting ammo clips to give you more gun ammo because you can run out of ammo, and once that happens, it's karate kicking all the time. There's nothing in between. There are one thing about this, a la Addams Family. There are secret areas. If you nose around, did you find any secret areas?
No, but I saw some on the playthroughs. Yeah,
they had some secret areas. I mean, I stumbled on one, so I mean they were there. At the end of every level, you have a boss fight. Some of the the bosses. I mean, honestly, I'll be honest with you, they're sort of generic boss fights. Like one guy had just like long chain thing he swung at you. That's the only guy I got to. The game is not what I would call unbelievably difficult, in my opinion, but it was not the easiest game to play. There are cheats for it, and you don't need a trainer. They're just they're in-game cheats, which is nice. It was, I don't want to say it was generic, but it was sort of kind of. It reminded me, there's a game on the Amiga that I played called Navy SEALs. I think I've talked about that before. This was like a little slicker version. Some of the stuff sort of irritated me, though. They would put you in situations where there was a bad guy directly behind like a box, and he had to jump on you, and so it sort of felt kind of cheap. It wasn't the cheapest thing I've ever seen. There are exploding barrels that shtick. You know, every video game scrolling shooting tripe you can think of is in this game. They're all here. The bad guys. The one thing about the bad guys, they're real stupid, and so if you get the jump on them, you can just like walk up right behind them, and go like bang, which is funny. It's mostly just their placement that you have to worry about. One thing I did enjoy is that you can sneak up. You clearly you can't shoot while you're ducked, but what you can do is, if you just peek above an area where a bad guy is, you can shoot, and your bullet will go all the way across the screen, and you'll kill a guy if he's there. So you can pick guys off before you get to them, which is nice. It makes it a little bit easier.
One thing I didn't like was there's guys that drop dynamite from ledges onto the second level, and unfortunately there is no friendly fire in this game, so it would not affect the enemies that were directly below them at all. That would have been a nice touch if they would have done that.
And the funny thing is that you go up in levels in this. The dynamite guys can just start, they're like mad bombers. I mean, they're launching dynamite as quick as one blows up, they launch another one, which that gets irritating. The jumping in this I thought was okay. It's your favorite boat, up for jump. If you're comfortable with up for jump, you'll probably be okay. I thought the jumping was a little, it was not the easy. This is a game where you have to have precise jumping. It's one of those, and it's hard sometimes to precisely jump. There's a little bit of blind jumping here and there. One thing you can do on this that's neat, you can shimmy across chains and ropes. Your character can also shimmy up poles.
Yeah, you have a lot of different abilities in this.
This game sort of reminded me. I know you're gonna yell at me, but parts of it reminded me. Maybe it was the structure of it was of Adam's Family. Not as good, but I mean, it's like if you want an actiony, more less goofy.
Yeah,
like
I don't think I'd argue with that.
I mean, you could see how some of the guys from that worked on this, right? But I mean, I guess for me, and it's like I said, I'm not going to knock the game. I think it's an attractive game, and it was fun. I like the ability to switch levels on your own. Now, a couple of the levels are locked until you get past a couple other levels, and then the last level is a crazy secret level, where they kind of screw up your cop station. Overall, I thought it was fun. Everything about it was slick. I just thought it was pretty generic, which is how I would summarize the films, if you want the truth. I mean, people love these movies, but I mean, really, they're just another sort of buddy cop flick. I never thought they were particularly awesome, And so
were they the first buddy cop flick?
No, I don't think so. I mean, because you had like Running Scared, I believe, predates Lethal Weapon. I
don't think anybody's heard of that movie, though.
Sure, that was a big deal. Billy Crystal was in it, and that was a buddy cop flick. I mean, buddy cop. You got to think you even had like Starsky and Hutch and stuff like that from back in the day. I'm sure that stuff predates the Lethal Weapon films. There was nothing in this that's had anything to do with Lethal Weapon, really. Like your guy doesn't go crazy and do anything or say anything. There's no dialogue until you get to the very end. At the very end of the thing,
he's like, "Yippee-ki-yay!"
No. He at the very, very end of the game, there's some dialogue, and then they show some clips from the films. Just some like still shots they digitized in. But I mean, nothing screams. I didn't run across any characters really that were in the movies that I remembered. I mean, like Joe Pesci was in the movies. Stuff like that. I didn't see any characters that were like from the movies. Now, admittedly, it's been a little while since I saw the films, but I mean, it just seemed utterly and totally generic. You could have called this anything you wanted, And saying it's Lethal Weapon now. So if you're buying this to get the spirit of the films, I'm probably not going to get it. This could have been pretty much anything. But what they did do, I thought they did well. And the parts that I got to, I enjoyed. I like the elevator sort of action. I like ride up and down, be able to shoot guys. There's some stages where you just like I don't know who would build a building with like 10 elevators that span across the whole building, and people, and you're just leaping to your death. It's like, what building is this? Even in the cop office, buddy, the elevators just open shafts. Right.
That is a good point.
It's like, who built this? Like Jean-Claude Van Damme built it, But it's always that was kind of strange. But there's lots of like in the sewer. There's like areas where there's we have to worry about water. There's several areas in the game where like the elevators are going up and down. There's chains. You got to jump across and grab. I mean, it's not anything that's incredibly earth-shakingly brilliant, but it's well done for what they've got. I guess that's the way I would build this game.
Yeah.
It's a game that's good at what it does. Just what it does isn't real inspired. That's my opinion. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I think that your comparison to Elevator Action 2 is apt. However, I also think that my comparison to Rolling Thunder is also apt. Especially in the early levels where you have the upper and lower region and you've got people popping out of doorways and things like that. Now, of course, this game switches environments a lot more than Rolling Thunder, and it is more of a game than Rolling Thunder. But that was the first thing that I thought.
The Rolling Thunder guy has a cooler move.
Yeah.
This guy doesn't have a move like that. No. At least that guy's got the move. This guy doesn't have any move.
I think that this game is probably Ocean's best platformer besides the Addams Family that I've played. The up for jump thing is a drag, but if you can remap that button, the controls are pretty tight. I think that, just like you said, I think that some of the enemy placements are a little bit cheap. A lot of times you'll just walk into a hail of gunfire and feel like, well, how could I have known that that was going to happen?
That's probably, in my opinion, that's the game's biggest flaw. Is that I mean, it's just your generic. I'll put a guy here.
Yeah, and the people, and it is. I mean, if you played this over and over and over again, the trick is just memorizing where all those things are and getting around them. So it would be possible to master this game, I'm sure.
Starting over every time you get killed is a pain in the butt. Now, once you get so far in a level, you're okay, but that still gets old.
But overall, I think this is a pretty solid platformer on the Amiga.
Yeah, it was actually quite a surprise. There's also a great level where you have to avoid these barrels. And it's sort of like, I don't know if you got that far, but it's sort of like a live-action Donkey Kong or something. It's real crazy. And the game, the level design is okay. It's really, I don't have a problem with the level design as much as I have as the enemy placement. This is a game that gets the level design pretty good. I think there's not too many cheap jumps. And the barrel level is pretty interesting. Then there are some points where you get to and you're like, how the heck do I get past this? Well, you have to really think about it. And the thing is that both characters you pick, like I said, effectively it's the same character, it's just a different skin. But they can both do a lot of stuff, and you sort of have to incorporate that into what you're doing. So I think that's pretty neat. And there are some timing-based elements, like, for example, there's a guy that every time you get near his platform, he shoots a flamethrower. Well, you've got to figure out how to kill him first, or you just eat the flamethrower. You have like a hit bar, basically. It's the standard stuff. Lethal Weapon skin aside, they could have called it anything. It wouldn't have mattered to me. So I guess if you have an affinity to that movie, you might enjoy it more. But it didn't do it for me.
Yeah.
This thing did it got decent reviews. Amiga Action gave it an 82. Get ready to hear these scores. They're very similar. Amiga Computing gave it an 82. Amiga Format gave it a 64. They weren't as keen on it. Amiga Magazine gave it an 8 out of 10. Amiga Power 78, and the One gave it a 79. I would say that, again, this is a game that would fall right in that low B, high C category. I think as platformers go, I think it's a solid B.
Yeah, I think so too.
Shooting platformers. I mean, I think it's good enough. I mean, and the thing is, it's pretty tight.
Yeah.
They crossed all the T's and dotted the I's on it. So I mean, I'll give them that. I eBayed this thing. It's funny where I found this. I didn't find any copies in the States. I did find, in fact, the only active copies, I looked in the history, the whole 9 yards. If you want this right now and you're in Sweden, you're in luck. They've got a copy on sale in Sweden for $66. Italy had the other 2 copies that were active, $82 and $17 respectively. So yeah, there's a weird chasm there between the things.
Yeah.
But overall, not the worst thing we've looked at. Not the best, but somewhere in the upper middle.
Yeah. Very good. So before we close this thing out, I'd like to remind everybody that Amigos are on Patreon. If you like the show, if you're watching in the chat right now and you'd like to head over to patreon.com/Amigos podcast and throw us a couple bucks a month, we'd surely appreciate it. You could join this illustrious list of names. These are all of our Patreon supporters. This is Dan Ross, Leaf Kaland, Alan Kebab, Donald Tyler, Level Lord, John Marshall, Matthew Perron, Ricky DeRocher, who's in the chat right now, Creepy Dead Boy, who's also in the chat, Figgy CTZ, Amigos Game Selection Committee member that chose this game, This Low Norris, Stefan Sorgard Mortensen, Edvin Helland, who was in the chat earlier, Blindo75, who just donated to Amigathon as we were taping, Christopher Hassel, Ravi Abbott, both of those guys were in the chat earlier. Chris Folds, Dreamcatcher, Laurent Giroux, Graham Vebke, Brent Dowdy, Lane Denson, Adam Battersby, O'Brien's Retro and Vintage, Gary Hucker, C. Brian Jones, Paul Harrington, Duncan Stiles in the chat right now, Anthony Jarvis, Tapes from the Crypt, Josh Nan, Will Williams, Adam Bradley, Jonas Rulo, THT, Eric Nelson, Kim, Tommy Humbertstad, Daniel Bingston, Brutal Barracuda, Darren Coles, Jason Warren's Pixels at Dawn, and Kjolbjorn Barman.
You didn't even need that sheet. You get that memorized.
All up here, baby.
It's amazing.
Next week, Aaron, we're going to take a look at a classic strategy title for the Amiga. This game is called Genesee or something like that. Yeah, Genesee. It was Adam Battersby request, another Amigos Game Selection Committee member. So we will take a look at that next week.
I never heard of this one.
Yeah, so it'll be a fun one to take a look at. Remember that Amigos records almost every Friday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. If you'd like to join us in chat, you're more than welcome to. And if you're a Patreon supporter, hit us up on our Discord channel. There's Amiga Talk going on 24/7 on there. Plus, you can hear about any upcoming schedule changes like today's. So hopefully we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for listening, and adios.
What's that game called again?
Genesee.
Genesee.
Yeah, he says it makes... what's that game that we just played just the other week? The one with the knights and stuff. Settlers. He says it makes Settlers look like paint by number. It's like, so. We might be in trouble with this one. I need to see what's going on with Eep here. I don't know why I took off my microphone.
So where does Indy fit into this mix?
Indy's next.
No, I mean, in terms of like where's it going to fit into the?
Indy is releasing.
Is it before Lethal Weapon?
No, it's after Lethal Weapon. Lethal Weapon will come out on Monday, the 26th.
Why did you announce Genesee then instead of Indiana Jones?
Because Indiana Jones is going to come out before any of these. Indiana Jones is going to come out this Thursday.
That's what I was asking. Okay.
Yeah.
Do 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 do.
Let's see what this is.
Oh, my poor body.
Oh, okay. Eep actually came. Maybe that the ghost was actually Eep coming in, because she came to get her wallet and then she went back to work.
I thought so.
I have heard that close though, unexpectedly.
We should have a chat during this show.
We have a chat during every show.
No, a proper chat, since we're not going to run any news.
Well, you want to get out the catalog? You want to do the? Well, I figured we'd talk about Indy. We'd talk about.
Yes, we should talk about the series of Indiana Jones and the various games. We don't have to have any background for that, because I have comments on the various games. Did you actually?
I'm sure you have comments on the various movies too. And I have seen all of these movies, so that's something that
I'm surprised because there's violence in these.
I don't mind violence. I like pro wrestling. I just don't like gratuitous graphic violence.
Like, give me an example of a movie you saw that you hated.
Anything that is like very gore. Like, I don't like seeing somebody get shot and like their body opening up and guts falling out.
So, like, not a big fan of, like, say, Evil Dead or Hostel.
Yeah, no. That is an example of what I don't like. I don't mind if somebody gets shot, like in Indiana Jones, when somebody gets shot, you see like the thing come out the back of their thing and they fall down. That's fine. Just like with pro wrestling. I like pro wrestling, but I don't like it when they get out the razor blades and people get color. That's not my scene.
Fair enough. That color, the hell, that adds to it, though.
It adds to something.
The realism.
Yeah.
It's not. I mean, it doesn't work like it used to. So let me get into the pop and we'll fire it up.
This is the Fate of Atlantis adventure game.
Did you look at the action game?
I
forgot it existed
saw it on
until I
Lemon.
was researching this, and I remember always hearing that it sucked. I never played it, but I remember hearing it was no good.
Well, we'll talk about this on the show. I've got other thoughts.
Let me give you a refill. I'm going to read the particulars on this one and toss it over to you, Bo.
Okay, sounds good.
Right. Did you like Lethal Weapon? You actually dug it?
Yeah, I actually did.
I was surprised, actually. I mean, I felt like I killed it there, but I didn't mean to. It's generic as hell.
Yeah, but I think it's a very competent game.
Yeah, it
is.
It looks good.
Yeah. Man, it's great. I fired up Dolphin last night. I played it on the stream, but then after the stream ended, I immediately went over to the couch and kept playing it. Dolphin's a great emulator.
Yeah, it's real good.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like how you put the mic on your koozie. That's a good look.
Oh man, I'm ready. I'm done. Stick a fork in me.
We could do a blow by blow reenactment of Luke's baseball game.
Oh God. Can't wait. Remember when this was just going to be an ARG? What the hell happened? That's like 6 episodes later. Let's keep them coming.
But we're good to go. I mean, we'll be good
so
through next week.
This week
and the worst part is that it's going to take me the rest of the night to schedule all these out. So, but it'll be fine because next week I'll be at the family reunion. So
that'll be nice for you.
Yeah,
man.
Grandpa's turning 90.
Golly, Neds, can you believe that?
Yeah, World War II veteran.
Here's what we need right there.
Yeah,
I want that for Christmas. Set me up.
All right. I'll get you one
FM
for Christmas.
Towns, not FM Towns.
Yeah, I'll get you one for your birthday.
And
your
not just an FM Towns. If it's not an FM Towns Marty, it's crap.
I'll get you all the adult-oriented titles that dominated it too. So
what?
That machine is famous for its hentai selection.
Oh snap!
Yeah,
that sounds good, man. Let's do a when we start this. Do you have any feedback or anything?
You ever just like do that with your head? Feels kind of good.
What? We had no more for you. You've lost your mind. You derailed that. We were off that track. We were off the rails and heading down the hill. Have you got somebody to get your tree out of your yard, by the way?
Yeah, Rob came over. Well, no, yes and no. He came over and cut it up last night. So now there's a tree in a million pieces in the back of my yard.
That to my mom and dad for a while. They just sat back there for years rotting.
And so I'm gonna at least I can mow around it now. So I'm gonna go out there with the weed eater and mow it up. But I don't know what I'm gonna do. I guess I'm gonna wait till it dries out because the thing is, pine. Nobody wants pine because you can't burn it indoors. You can only use it for bonfires. I guess I'm just going to split it up and stack it and then just have a bunch of bonfires. So I might have you guys over, Luke and Tree, and roast some marshmallows or something at some point later on in the summer.
My brother sent me a message. Interesting.
What did he say?
He didn't. I mean, he didn't.
I'm out.
No, it's over. He was never in. All right, you ready to take this thing to the hizzy?
This is the last thing that we have to do before the next show that will happen right after it. Just keep that in mind.
What's the next show that will happen?
We got to do an insert disc too.
I thought we did one already.
No, that we got to do one for this week. That was the one for next week.
That won't take that long.
Yeah.
Let's just get through Atlantis.
Okay.
By the way, well, I'll get into this. I've got a lot to say about this. I'm glad we're.
Oh shoot.
I've got things to say. You think you've heard me bitch before? I'm gonna drop the hammer.
Good. Take it to town.
Towns Marty.
Towns Marty. Take it right to the town. Straight up downtown.
Am I really brown?
Do you really want to love me forever?
Look at my head.
You look, yeah. I mean, I think that you're well represented. The camera represents you well.
Would you shut up with that?
What?
There is no. I don't want it to look like me.
What do you want it to look like?
Get a big wad of Vaseline, like the pornos. They just splash it on there.
Is that something that they used to do?
I want an ethereal feel.
Let's go back to that statement. They put a big wad of Vaseline.
Yeah, on the lens to get that sort of fuzzy, like dream sequence feel. They put Vaseline on the lens.
Ooh, that makes that kind of film even more skeezy when I think about
it's not
viewing
pornos.
it through.
It's not pornos. Never did. I was just being cute. But like, you ever watch a movie and like something goes like, and it, it goes like this, and then like also it's like a dream world. It's all kind of ethereal looking. And that's Vaseline on that lens right
You're
there.
a wealth of knowledge on movie production techniques.
Listen, that's all I know. I know you're being a smart ass, but I'm gonna let you go. But you're right. That's all I know. That's the one movie move.
I learn everything that I know from you.
Wow.
Just like last night at the game when Macho's hometown came on the screen.
Nights.
I remembered that because you told me it was Sarasota, Florida.
That's good, man.
See? All right.
Hey.
Lobsterminator, welcome. Thank you for your Amigathon donation.
Man, I'm glad you guys are in the chat. It's cool to have like a ton of people in here.
Yeah.
You can see how really off the charts stupid we are. It's crazy.
I'm gonna put the link to Amigathon if you are just now joining us. And we can't pitch Amigathon every week. It'll get old. We're too far out. So we're gonna skip it this week.
We've got to pitch it every week. Every week. It's for charity.
Well, we can't make it go that long.
Okay, I'll make you a deal on that. Everyone loves charity.
Everybody does love charity. And
you know what I love in a podcast is when a guy just keeps pitching something.
Do you remember when Playmakers came out on ESPN? Remember that series Playmakers?
No.
It was the drama about the NFL. It came out in 2003.
Oh yeah, the Bengals were in one.
No. This was a fictitious football team.
I don't remember.
And it was like a soap opera, but it was all.
That sounds god awful.
But anyway, they pitched it for like 6 months beforehand. It was all, and so I had to watch it because I was so used to seeing the commercials. So.
Bang that drum. Styles gets it.
He does.
Styles, good article, dude.
I'm not.
I wasn't just blowing smoke. I liked it. We got a lot of people doing some odd. You know, Brutal did that review of gosh, what was a game we just did a couple weeks ago, and it was great too. I liked it too. A video review. Did you see that one?
Maybe I did. I don't know.
It was real good.
I'm awful.
I just can't. I've played so many games, and my brain's just melting out my ears. You know, it's a lot of games, and I played way too much BBC Micro.
BBC
I'm
Micro
embarrassed
is great.
the amount of it's like oh, every game I love, they all popped up. I'm like, holy crap! And now that I know that there's Chucky Egg on the Coco,
There's a Chucky Egg on the Amiga.
I'm all over that. Really?
Yeah, I forgot to read the ports on my list, but yeah, it came out on the 8-bit, the Atari 8-bits.
Holy smokes! This is tremendous.
It
what
is.
a tremendous day of enlightenment.
It's a great day.
It is. You know, and now you learned about Lethal Weapon twice, 2 times.
I'm leaving all that in at the beginning.
Oh, but don't do it, man. Don't do it. Listen to me.
The show's only 25 minutes long if we don't.
We're not going to leave all that in. Listen, it was a short game. There was not that much news either. I'm ready. I'm ready to rock and roll.
All right, I'm going to cut that. There's 3 minutes of nonsense, so I'm just going to start it, and we're going to give us about 20 seconds of lead time.
Dun, 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 dun. That's how you should start the show. Dun, dun, dun. You should. Where's your guitar? Get it going.
Man, my students love playing that on their instruments. I got a movie favorites book. And
I bet.
They love banging that out.
It's
that and the
awesome.
Jurassic Park theme.
No. See, I'm not nuts. Yeah, that's Jurassic Park. Not my thing. I lived with a girl who played that 24/7. Literally, when the tape ended, the VCR would rewind and play it again, over and over and over.
Wow.
That and Beavis and Butthead.
That's
Yeah,
wrong.
She had issues.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Amigos. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
And today we're going to be talking about Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis.
Yes, I think I know how it ended.
Do you?
It sank. Yeah.
All right, but before we get into Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, I thought we might talk a little bit about the Indiana Jones films in general.
Yeah, good idea. I've got a lot to say about these films because they're all over the road, and also I've just watched them recently.
Okay, so what's your take on the Indy series?
Well, of course, if you live under a rock, you'll have never heard of these things, but the Indiana Jones series, which was Raiders of the Lost Ark, and then you had Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Then you had the Last Crusade, and then you had the Crystal Skull. All right, I saw, and I think I've mentioned this in the show, but I saw Indiana Jones or Raiders of the Lost Ark in the theater with my folks, and at the exact moment he shot that guy that had the swords, the tape broke, and we had to sit there going like, "What?" And I remember being like at the end of that movie when those guys
their faces melt.
The ark is open, you know, and the spirits and stuff fly around. Boy, that was so scary. I about died.
It was a frightening scene.
That was. I mean, you look at it now, you're like, but I mean, that was pretty graphic.
Yeah.
The guy freaking melted, man.
That's right at the edge of what I can take in movies.
That's it.
Yeah.
So we know where the line is.
Right.
But he deserved it. He was a real scumbag.
He was.
But I remember thinking, holy smokes, what a movie. And I, as we were walking out, my dad was like, yeah, that was no good.
Aw.
I was like, what? Are you kidding me, Dad? So I was on my own for the rest of the Indiana Jones series. I don't think I saw any of the other ones in the theater except for Crystal Skull. But I'm guessing, do you remember the first time you saw Raiders?
It wasn't until later in life. It was probably in high school that I started watching all the Indiana Jones movies. I think I saw, I think my family rented The Last Crusade when it first became available on video. And I watched it. And I thought it was cool because I hadn't seen the other ones. And I know that people don't like Last Crusade, but to me it was cool because it was like it was kind of like a Dan Brown novel. If you've ever read any of those,
Who?
Dan Brown.
Dan Brown.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, all of the like the treasure hunts and you know going through the library and seeing the big X on the carpet and stuff. When you're 10 or 11 years old, that's really cool. You know,
cool now.
Yeah. And so, but I saw Temple of Doom and Raiders of the Lost Ark probably in high school.
So did you watch them in mass?
No, I probably just saw them on TV when they were on.
So you didn't sit down and watch all of them, but they were all released at that point.
Oh yeah, I mean like
Skull.
I think TBS used to show them all the time.
Yeah. Having had to wait for the sequels, I remember when Temple of Doom came out. and it looked really scary to me. I was like, holy smokes. And I'm trying to think if I saw that in the theater, and I may have. I mean, because it was a big hit, you know.
Well, I do know some trivia about Temple of Doom. Temple and Doom, both Temple of Doom and Gremlins were the two films that were responsible for the creation of the PG-13 rating system.
Really?
In America, yeah.
I wonder why Temple of Doom.
The scene where his heart gets ripped out.
Oh,
they
it
thought
wasn't that graphic.
That's what the people thought. Well, we need a rating above PG but below R for these sort of scenes.
Wasn't there a scene in that where they eat monkey brains? Was that in that
Yeah,
one?
that was in Temple of Doom too.
That was much scarier.
That was
yeah. I didn't like that, and a lot of people kind of look down on Temple of Doom. Not me. I like Temple of Doom.
That's my least favorite, to be honest with you.
It's my second favorite. I liked it. I will admit that his love interest or lady co-star, she's every bit as irritating as she could be.
Yeah, and you know that
she's cute, but I mean, she's not like. I didn't like her. She's sort of a flapper type.
Do you know the history behind that too?
I believe she ended up marrying or was married to the guy that ran the studio.
That's how she got the gig. Yeah.
And so you could tell.
Yeah.
But she didn't do well. But it did have Short Round.
Short Round's a nice guy.
Short Round was cool. No Time for Love, Dr. Jones.
Right.
I like him. He was a butt kicker. He was the last guy to get caught, you know. And the idea there was a kid in it. You know, normally I'm not really keen on the whole kid in the movie thing. But I dug him. So otherwise, cool movie, cool bad guy. You know, it was interesting. It was sort of a anomalous from the rest of the series in a way, but I liked it. So then you had Last Crusade. Now, I'm a big James Bond guy. So when I heard Sean Connery was going to be in this thing, I was like, oh boy, now you got something. You know.
Of course, this is old Sean Connery at this point.
No, he's young compared to what he is now.
Well, that's true. So are we.
So when I went, I'm pretty sure I think I saw it in the theater, but I'm not sure. But I remember when I saw it, I didn't like it at all. I didn't like it a bit. I thought it was no good. And the only part I liked was when Indy got Hitler to sign that book. That was the only part I thought was funny, you know. But the rest of it just didn't do it for me. I didn't buy into the religious aspects of it. I didn't like the ending with the find the chalice, and it didn't do it. Didn't do it for me. Now I have recently rewatched it, and I watched it with my kid, and I warmed up to it a little bit. It was a little bit better. And there are some pretty funny parts, you know.
When they're tied up, you know, Sean Connery, and they're tied up, and the guy says, "Is there anything I can do for you?" And he says, "I certainly hope you'll die soon." And
I do like that. There's a bit when they're on the Zeppelin, and Indy is dressed as a ticket taker, and there's a Nazi on there, and he takes a Nazi and boots him out of the Zeppelin, and then he goes, he didn't have his ticket. Everyone on the whole Zeppelin holds their ticket up and starts shaking it. Here, I got mine. I thought that was pretty funny, but it's got its moments. You know, again, I'm still not too keen on the ending. He chose poorly. I like that, but it is okay. Then we'll get to no, I'm guessing you love that one then.
I mean, that one, I like probably 1 and 3 the best, tied. I think they're both good films.
Really? Tied with 1?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm surprised. I thought 1 was head and shoulders above the other ones. I really did. Of course, it was the first one. Then you got Crystal Skull. Now, this one I absolutely saw in a theater. It was just out of
I saw it in the theater also.
3 or 4 years ago when it came out. And I didn't know anything about it. I knew it was Indiana Jones. I knew Harrison Ford was old at this point. But I thought, well, heck, Indiana Jones, right? And then I went and saw it. Now, have you seen the Crystal Skull?
Yes, I saw it in the theater.
Okay, you didn't come with me, did you?
I might have.
Because I went with a big group of people.
Yeah, I might have come with you.
So what did you think of Crystal Skull?
I did not hate it nearly as much. It did not deserve nearly the vitriol that it... These movies are not Citizen Kane, you know? Indiana Jones. It's Indy freaking Anna Jones. They're dumb. And this was a dumb movie. Now, this one was probably dumber than the other movies, but it's still a dumb action movie. The whole thing in the refrigerator when he hides from the nuclear bomb, of course he's going to do that. It's Indiana Jones, you know? I thought that the CGI and stuff, it relied too heavily on that stuff. But I don't know. It was fine. You can tell me how much you hate it. Go ahead.
I hated it. Here's how much. A lot. Let me begin. So, for starters, this was the movie where they were going to pass the torch to a new, younger man to pick up the mantle of Indiana Jones.
The young Indiana Jones, I think he was called.
No, he was called that idiot goof from Transformers. What's that goof's name, Boat? Do
Um,
you remember his name? He's always in trouble.
Alexi Lawless.
No, it's not. So anyway, the movie is an endless series of events where Indiana Jones gets captured and escapes or is freed over and over and over. Indy looks old and tired.
He looks beat down.
It was cool to see the chick from the first movie come back. I always liked her, but it wasn't that cool. And the
Shia LaBeouf. Thank you, Duncan.
Shia LaBeouf. This guy, I know it's popular. It's stylish even to hate on this guy. So for once, I will be stylish. I don't like this guy.
It's also stylish to hate on this movie. You're being stylish all over the place.
Shia LaBeouf, whatever you call him, he's a goof. The LaBeouf's a goof. It was horrible in this movie. He played this 50s style greasy biker or something.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? This guy's no fighter. Did you look at this guy?
Well, neither is an archaeology professor.
No. I mean, he looked like a goof. It's like if we put biker attire on you and put you on a hog and sent you down to the biker bar. They'd eat you up and spit you out.
They would.
Or maybe they wouldn't. Maybe you're a tough guy. If you had your sword, then you got problems. That sounds like a movie. The Adventures of Boat, and you drive around the nation with your
samurai biker.
Samurai get up.
That would be pretty cool, actually.
Man, I'd pay to see that. Yeah. But yeah, LaBeouf was horrible. The whole nuke thing, horrible. The plot for this was god awful. God, it was so bad. The whole Crystal Skull phenomenon.
I thought it was going to be a product tie-in because, Dan Aykroyd has the Crystal Skull vodka that he makes. And I thought that was going to be
I had no idea. Really?
Yeah.
How are you going to tie that in? What
Dan Aykroyd's going to show up. Hey, guys, here's some Crystal Skull vodka.
I'm an alien. If you're, I don't know how this flies overseas, but in America, the Crystal Skulls mystery has been very...
Is it actually a real mystery?
Absolutely. If you watched way back when I was a young lad, there was a show called In Search Of.
Leonard Nimoy.
Hosted by Leonard Nimoy. And that was one of the episodes they did was the Crystal Skulls. And if you're into that sort of stuff, which I am, you've heard of these stories and all the people that own these Crystal Skulls. Where did they come from? What do they do?
Right.
And so... leave it to, I believe did Lucas write this? I think Lucas was the guy that wrote the screenplay for this Indiana Jones movie.
I don't know.
Whoever wrote it should stop. But the whole alien tie-in was a disaster. I hated it. Enough said. It was no good. It was a dud. So with those movies out of the way, let's talk about some of the games that we played that were based on the movies. So I think the first Raiders type game I played would probably be the Temple of Doom game that Atari put out. That we actually did we look at that on the show? I believe a while back. The one where he goes to the mines with his whip and he rescues the kids out of the cages. There's also a mine car section. Surely you've played this. It was on the same hardware that Atari made.
Well, I know that the first game was Raiders of the Lost Ark on the 2600.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah. You're right.
That's the one where Indiana Jones. That's one where Harrison Ford saw it and he's like, "That's just like the real movie." In all seriousness, he was all in when he saw that game.
Did Howard Scott Warshaw make that game?
I believe he did in like 4 weeks.
Now I'd forgotten about that game, and I will have to say that we did play that on Twitch, and it was an advanced game it was an adventure game that you put on the Atari. And that was a very impressive game. I have to say I totally had forgotten about that. So yeah, you're right. It had the iconic tune in it. I know Howard Scott Warshaw made it because I've seen him walking around in that hat. Indy's iconic hat. So I'm sure he made it. So,
well, he's also the ill-fated programmer that was assigned E.T.
Yeah, he got paid though. So you're right, and that was a pretty good game. And then the next game I would have played would have been the Temple of Doom game that we talked about. Now that game has some people like it, some people don't, but I kind of dug it. I think it was on the same. I think it was on the same chipset in the arcade as Jedi was.
That makes sense.
Have you played it?
The sprite style is similar.
Right. It's pretty fun, including all the. It's even got a part where the guy's doing the ritual in front of the flaming mouth and the statue. I thought it was a pretty good game. You get your mine cart, pretty good, pretty fun game. Now, can you think of any other of the Indiana Jones games you played up past that point?
I played the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles on the Super Nintendo.
Now, before you get into that, I was a big fan of that show. I think I've mentioned it once or twice just in passing. That was a show that ran on ABC, and I remember it was the lead into Monday Night Football. I don't know why. and there were 3 young Indiana Joneses. There was a little kid, kind of a slightly older kid, and then there was like a teenage version. They would go over different aspects of Indy's life depending on what week it was. So like but they would be in line with each other, and so it was and I didn't like the little kid, but the oldest kid, he actually had they did stories where he fought in World War I, and it was real intense show. And I don't think it ran more than a couple seasons because it was one of the most expensive TV shows of the time ever made. It was real expensive.
I remember liking it, and I remember renting the Super Nintendo game because of it.
How was that?
I can't remember. I wish I could. I should have revisited it to check it out. Yeah.
I remember seeing it out there. I was like, I'm sure this is crap. I know you recall the bit, and I think it was the third Indiana Jones where River Phoenix played Indy. At the very beginning, they had like a flashback where he's on a train, So I think that was sort of the kickoff for the young Indiana Jones, and that was a good part of the movie. Actually, I did like that part. And River Phoenix was very convincing, young Indiana Jones.
That's where he gets his hat, right?
The look. That's right. That's right. Yeah. So that was cool. And then when you got into your PC, now this was not the first Indiana Jones graphic adventure. Did you play the first one?
No, I didn't play Last Crusade. This is my first graphical adventure in the Indiana Jones universe.
Now, the Last Crusade was obviously was older. If you look at it now, it's one of those games that spans the gap when you're on the PC anyway. When you're moving from sort of your EGA level graphics up to your more VGA level graphics, and it's a little dated. The music's a little dated as well. I was not really a big graphics adventure guy, but my buddies used to play the crap out of it, and I had a copy of it somewhere. But it looked okay. It's the same kind of fare you would expect. Now, before we get into this game, we should mention that there was 2 Indiana Jones games that were released on multiple platforms that coincided together. There was this game, the Fate of Atlantis. Then there was an Indiana Jones action game. Now, I've not played the action game, but I remember when these 2 games were released, the action game was, as I recall, was pretty much panned, and that this game was the one that people were really into. Do you have any recollection of the action game?
I was not cognizant of the scene at the time this came out.
It's sad. I'm that old, but this game was sort of. When it came out, was very well regarded amongst at least my peer group. They were all into it. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and leap Indy style into Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis.
All right, hold on a second. I haven't updated anything yet, so just hang on.
Take your time, Boat.
Just need to download a long play. Let's see here.
Hey, anyone in the chat room play the action game? I'm sure somebody there has played it.
How is the PC CD version half the time of the? Maybe that one's just
all the disc swapping.
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe so. That's from 2006. That's from 3 years ago. Oh, this one's got all the endings on it. That's why. All right, we'll take this one. Yeah.
Fancy. So you're telling me the third one you liked as much as the first one, huh?
Yeah, yeah. I thought they were equally good. And now we need to get the box.
Should I just pick up right as I begin?
Yeah.
All right. I used to love Indy. Yeah, that's it.
And we need to know what year it came out.
93.
93.
The fart of Atlantis. Nicely done.
That would be great.
You spelled Lucas wrong.
Oh, Luskus. There you go. All right, and make that kind of like that.
They were right. I'm getting too old for this shit.
I was really going to make that yippee-ki-yay. I was going to make that part of like the pitch on Twitter and stuff, so I'm glad you steered me.
You actually thought that was from Lethal Weapon?
I seriously thought that those two movies were the same.
Wow.
Didn't
do a lot of looking into the actual film, I'm guessing, when you reviewed that one.
I'm not sure what you mean, Asifa. But I do need to change out the. Let's see here. Oh, I see what you mean. I got you. We'll do that.
The adventure game one? It's just called the. That's good enough.
It's the adventure game one. It's not the action game one. It's the adventure game
Sounds
one.
good to me.
Thanks, Chris. Okay.
It's like produced by committee. This is our show.
Now,
thank you
right.
for producing us.
The chat room. You guys are part of the show. You're the best part of the show.
So I'm looking here. So Edvin's trying it now. Yeah, let me know how you think. What you think, Edvin? I remember trying it back in the day, but I don't remember thinking it was very good. How do you botch Indiana Jones a boat? It's unbelievable. All right, you ready?
Let's do it.
Tell me when to get it kicked.
Now.
Okay. So, Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis. This came out in 1993. So your boy here was 4 years on the other side of high school at that point. What a bummer. It's very depressing.
Your boy here was in the perfect age to enjoy this adventure at 12 years old.
Oh, you're right, man. Developed, of course, by LucasArts. LucasArts had a couple games on the Amigas that they developed. Monkey Island 2 and the action version of Indiana Jones was also a LucasArts you joined. You want to take a guess how many discs this came out on?
I know this because I looked it up. It's the same as Monkey Island 2, right? 11 discs.
11 big discs.
Never more did Amiga owners wish for a CD-ROM unit for their computer.
Yeah, and of course this never got a release on CD, so
No.
you're boned.
Not for the Amiga.
One thing I like on this is the languages. You've got your French, German, Italian, and Spanish and English. So they covered I like that, and that seems to be something that comes up again and again on these Scum engine games. They have no problem.
Well, it's an instant translate. You can sell it all over the world.
I'm not going to go into the people that made this because there's like 1,000. This is your classic. This is when development of games really, these games were done by a large group of people. And from what I read, this game, due to the turnaround time on it, was sort of an all hands on deck affair. So when people got finished doing one thing, they were coming over and working on this.
Well, I've got a little bit of background on one of the designers on this game.
All right, what do you got?
So, whenever we do a game, I usually go over to Lemon Amiga and click on all the names just to see if there's anything interesting. And this guy, Hal Barwood, both of the two lead designers, I think, only worked on this game or this game in Monkey Island. And I was like, Hal Barwood, he didn't do anything else except for this on the Amiga. So what's the deal with this guy? So I Googled him, and this guy worked as an animator for George Lucas on his film THX 1138.
Really? Is that the student film he did?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And so that's how he broke into the industry. And then in 1981, he decided that he wanted to make video games. And so he created 2 video games for the Apple II, which he wrote and designed, entitled Binary Gauge and Space Snatchers. He gained slightly more fame when he was the screenwriter for Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Wow!
So this guy,
good,
if you think the writing is good in this game, there's a reason why.
Yeah, and by the way, it is.
Before we go on, I also want to thank Brutal Barracuda, Amigos Game Selection Committee member, for recommending this game.
Yeah, this was a soft touch for us because I had way back in the day, I had actually had a cup of coffee with this game. Again, as you know, these games aren't necessarily my bag, but Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Enough said. this game has one of the wackiest like openings of all time.
I wouldn't call it wacky. I would call it freaking awesome.
It's awesome. It's awesomely wacky. I mean, it sort of makes Indiana Jones look more like Inspector Clouseau, because the beginning of this game, where it starts out with Indy looking for an idol, a statue, and so you have, as the credits are rolling, it's like dun 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 dun. They come up and you see Indy. He kind of takes his whip and he swings into this room. There's books everywhere. He's like, "No, where did I put that statue?" And you sort of kind of help him, but your choices are incredibly limited. And when you click on something, he'll go over and check it out. Like he falls through a hole, then he slips to another hole that a bookcase falls on,
and then he falls through the floor again.
And then after he does that, he slips through a coal chute.
But think about how many games from this era have an interactive opening credit sequence. None. This game is awesome.
Yeah. So that was fun. And, of course, it gives you a feel for what you're about to do. Now, of course, at this point, the full SCUM engine isn't, the full interface isn't up, but still, it's cute.
Yeah.
They do a good job. And plus, there's not as much humor in this as there is in, say, Monkey Island, but there's still plenty of humor. This game was released, again, this is no AGA, and the graphics are beautiful. As you would imagine, they were meticulously done on deluxe paint, the old standard, and it looks great. As we mentioned, last time we talked about one of these games, that deluxe paint should automatically get an award for it. The many times it was used. Amazon Queen is the last example we had of this, and it looked great there too. Now this game, and me and Bo were talking about this off air. This game only appeared on a couple platforms until recently. It had a DOS port, and then the year after it released, it had a CD version, and the DOS version has audio. They actually have audio for all the dialogue, and I actually I played the DOS version this back in the day, and I remembered it, and I went back and listened to it, and the audio is really good. And the guy that you got doing Indiana Jones is not Harrison Ford, but the guy is unbelievably similar.
He's not bad.
He's not very bad. I mean, if you didn't know any better, if someone said, "Yeah, that's Harrison Ford," I'd have bought it.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds a lot like him. And I think in this case, the dialogue is good, because this is unlike, say, Flight of the Amazon Queen, where these characters are people you've never seen before or since. You know what Indiana Jones sounds like, so it's okay to hear what he sounds like. And then the rest of the characters, you can get past it because you've got that anchor.
Yeah, I thought that the Amiga version definitely lost out on all the audio fronts. If you listen to the PC, graphically, you look at the PC version and the Amiga version, they look almost the same. There's a little bit more detail in the PC version because of the higher resolution, but it's pretty much similar. The audio is really, really poor when you compare it with the PC version. It's not like the PC version has this lush orchestration, but whatever conversion they did when they were making the Amiga version, it was like they didn't go back and check what the instruments actually sounded like, and some of the stuff just really falls flat compared to the PC version.
I've got a comment. Before I say anything, I just happened to glance over, and Barracuda, who just wrote that he named his son Harrison Indy Smith. So he is a big fan. I love that. But getting back to the music, I agree with you. You know what the sound in this reminded me of was Wing Commander on the Amiga. It had that sort of MIDI, early sound blastery sound to it, which, again, this is the Amiga, dude. Crank that up.
You can do more. You can do more.
This version of the SCUM engine had what was called the iMuse engine, which was at the time, I remember hearing about this when no one heard about anything. And the gimmick behind it is it's sort of automatic sound that's dynamic and changes depending on what you're doing. Even if you do something, maybe it'll kick in maybe the third or fourth time you attempt something. It'll kick in this different type of music. It's mood. It sets the mood.
Right.
And so I will give the music that. Is the music up to the snuff of the graphics? No, it's not. And this game, and of course,
especially when you compare it to Flight of the Amazon Queen, which is, I think, the music in that was just so well done.
Well, the music in this, it was very MIDI sounding music. You're right. I noticed when I listened to it, I was like, man, this is not that appealing. I know we're gonna get murdered because I'm sure people love it.
It's not the Amiga's fault. I mean, the Amiga was capable of producing tons of awesome audio. Whatever the programmers were doing here, I think it was just an example of a lazy port where they took the tracks from the PC version and dumped them without checking on them.
You know, and they did improve the CD. And now the other place this was released, which I was getting to, was the FM. My personal favorite is the FM Towns Marty, which Boat is now required to buy me one of these. But I'm assuming since that was a CD-based engine, it was also just a CD-only release, and I don't know what that would sound like. I'm sure CD helped, and maybe they used this music because they had to fit it on the disc.
Maybe so.
You know, so that's and MIDI is real. I mean, clearly it's very simple to put it together. So I'm guessing that's probably what it was. But this game could have benefited from a more orchestra-like, musical anthem. But it does. The dynamic music is okay. I mean, I do like that. Now, at the time, it was very revolutionary. It's not so much now. You hear it a lot more, but it's pretty cool. And as you play this game, the music will come on. Sometimes there'll be no music. Sometimes they'll start back up depending on what you do.
The thing, it's very jarring. There are long stretches in this game where there is no music or sound at all.
It's funny. You're right. And I was sitting when I was playing this the other day. I was sitting there and the music had went off and I thought I had it muted. And I was like, "What's going on?" And then I did something. I was like, "Whoa!"
To me, that is not a good example of sound design. Like, you need to have something, either background noise. Like, if you're out in the street, like when you're outside the theater at the beginning of the game, you need to have the sound of cars going by or crickets or something, because it's jarring in a very unpleasant way when it does crank back up again.
I agree with that. So the Scum engine, we should probably briefly talk about it, was developed by the Lucas guys as an adventure engine. I don't remember what even Scum stands for.
Script creation utility for Maniac Mansion.
And of course, Maniac Mansion was was the premier, I believe, use of it, obviously. And they've used it many times. I know on the Amiga several times. But this was sort of a more doctored up version. They had a little more leeway in it when they put this one together. This engine's, I mean, if you've played any of these games, it's pretty much standard fare. Did you see anything that was any really different?
No, this is. I think
this
was the last game where it sort of resembled, because I think the games that were after this, like Grim Fandango and stuff like that, I think they altered the Scum engine to give you more of the screen. I think they might have changed the command system a little bit, if I remember correctly. But this one was still your classic, commands on the bottom left, inventory on the right.
Yeah, and so I mean, the one thing about this, if you're used to using the system, you can just float between the games without any problem. Now, again, me personally, I like the system in Flight of the Amazon Queen better, but that's just me. And so, I mean, your mileage, it's a pretty personal taste. So we should probably talk about what's going on in this game. The plot in this is bizarre, to say the least. One thing I would have mentioned, there's a way to play this on the Wii. I don't know if I mentioned that. It's in another Indiana Jones game. It's an unlockable or something in there, and you can play it. And apparently, the version that they include was quite nice.
Yeah, I read that too.
I've not seen that, and so I maybe have to try that out. They say it's one of the better versions. So, what is the plot of this game? Well, you're Indiana Jones, and you are basically pursuing. At the beginning of it, you effectively are pursuing a guy who stole something from you, to try to figure out what he's doing. The bad guy, of course, is a Nazi. Those Nazis, they're
always up to no good.
And so Indy hooks up with an old archaeologist buddy named Sophia Hapgood. They had worked together in, I believe it was Iceland, and when they were doing archaeology, but she quit the archaeological game to get into the psychic game, which I thought was a
It's a normal career path.
Sure. So why don't you go into depth how this plot goes? I mean, I've got a general idea, but I haven't played all the way through it, so I'm not sure of the entirety of it.
So Indy is, him and his sidekick, they've got these beads, and there's an amulet involved, and somebody has run off with part of the puzzle too, and they're basically trying to track him down. He goes to warn this lady that this guy might be after him. They end up going to a bunch of different locales. There's a map. You see the plane flying in a very Indiana Jones fashion. They end up in Atlantis. I don't want to spoil the ending. There are actually multiple endings in this game depending on how you play it. But if you watch the playthroughs, they actually go through all the different endings, and there are some. It's really neat. I think that the ending is not your normal fare. He definitely doesn't end up with the girl at the end, but it's along the way. It's your normal routine of solving puzzles, collecting items, combining items together, and using them on other items to open a door, etc.
There's some unusual bits in this that I thought were I liked. For one thing, there's a very robust conversation path in this, and what I mean by that is, you really get, this is sort of what you saw in these, but you really get a lot of options with your conversation, how it goes, and really nothing. There are a few places in this game where you can be killed.
Right, which is unusual for a LucasArts game.
But for the most part, you're free to kind of screw up and try again.
Yeah, in the parts where you can be killed, they give you plenty of warning, like, hey, this is, you need to do something. This is an area where you're going to be killed.
I read somewhere that one of the places you could be killed was punching Hitler. So now I didn't.
Don't punch Hitler.
I didn't get. Well, they said it was worth it. I didn't get that far, but apparently at some point you run into and can punch Hitler, which that amused me. But the dialogue's good, and the fact that it looks like stuff that Indy would say, for example, that's what makes it kind of fun. Especially when, again, if you have the PC version of it, you can actually hear Indy say the dialogue when you pick it. That's kind of neat. The one thing about this game is that you can play it in several different ways. All right, now, any chance I got, I tried to beat up somebody in this very like superficial fighting.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because they actually give you a path that you can follow. You can either do the fists path or the...
There's fists, wits, and team.
Right.
Now, I just thought it was funny to punch guys. Like the first thing I did was beat up the bouncer at that girl's at the psychic club. But you can in this, when you want to fight, it's not. You just basically put the mouse pointer where you want to punch, and you hit the button, and then you'll punch. There's a life meter. It's super. It's just exactly. It shouldn't be any. You don't want some kind of twitchy stuff in the middle of the game. That would kind of ruin the game. But you can also, a lot of it you can just get through by talking your way in and out of situations. I didn't get to a whole. I got as far as you would imagine I would get in this game, but it gave me enough time. Excuse me, to understand how the game works. It's your sort of classic Monkey Island like game. Like you said, there are plenty of puzzles. I've got to get this item to get this other item to get this guy. I've got to put this mask here. I've got to put this. There's a bit where you've got to try to trick this guy into thinking you're a ghost, and you've got to have a mask and stuff. And I'm not gonna say it's. I don't think it's that revolutionary. I will say again, the common sense elements that I liked in the Amazon, Flight of the Amazon Queen, I thought were sort of present in here, but for whatever reason, I was picking up on the vibe of that game a little more than this one. This game is beautiful. I will say one thing. These guys, you've got a huge staff of guys. Some of the scenes in this are so detailed. I will say they've got that over almost every other game of this type in terms of the way the scenery is drawn. The artist on this must have been out of his mind. They have, just the scenes in libraries and stuff, and they've drawn all this stuff. The screen is completely full of colorful stuff.
Yeah. That's the great thing about this game is that in some of these rooms, you're going to be stuck in this room for a long time because there's a puzzle you've got to solve. And they make it worth your while because they do make the scenery so beautiful.
Right. Indy can, there's depth when Indy moves. So, like, for example, early in the game, there's a scene where the camera is looking out of a window, and you see Indy come and cross the street and go into this other building, or you could see a guy get in the car. Sometimes there are little cut scenes early on, there's a scene where you see the bad guy who was hiding, and he walks off. And there's some scenes, where just you see stuff that happens that Indy doesn't see, so you sort of have an idea what's going on, that's pretty cool. I liked the girl. There's not, at least to the parts I got, there's no super duper love interesty type thing. They just mostly trade barbs, and since you're playing Indy, you can be as big a jerk as you want. So if you think like all the crap you do is garbage, your psychic thing is crap, the girl has like this spirit guide that's an Atlantean that she calls upon. Indy thinks all that's crap. You can be a real jerk if you want. I like the idea that you could be a jerk if you want. I think that was fun. One thing I wanted to mention is that the story of this game is pretty interesting. I read over. I had to admit, I read the overarch of the story just so I could get a flavor for the ending of it. And when they went to make this game, they originally looked at discarded screenplays to make the game. Did you read that? And one of the ones they looked at was from the same guy.
Indiana Jones and the Brass Monkey or something like that.
No, it was from
the funky.
That would have been a whole different movie where Indiana Jones enters a dance contest. But one of the ones they looked at was an old movie script that got rejected. It was from the guy that did Home Alone, Chris Columbus, did a bunch of good movies. And so they went ahead and just did their own. So this is an entirely original script.
Right. This was really Indiana Jones 4.
Yeah, it was referred to that many times. And I had even heard a rumor, and this is way before Crystal Skull was released, that they were going to base the fourth movie on this game.
It would have been a lot better if they did.
It would have been a lot better. This game was a lot more whimsical. This game was a lot more interesting. Atlantis is cool. I didn't like the alien tie-in in the movie. I thought that was just, I didn't like it. This is your Indiana Jones 4. Really, it is. It's much more interesting to look at. Did the interface do anything for you? I mean, did you notice anything you didn't notice at Monkey Island?
It's very similar to Monkey Island. I tend to prefer this interface over the Flight of the Amazon Queen interface just because I'm more familiar with it. It seems more like home to me. Although I prefer Flight of the Amazon Queen as a game over this game. Like I said, when we talked about that game, that's probably, it might be my favorite point-and-click adventure game of all time. So
they're both beautiful.
But they're both they're a feast for the eyes, as they say.
Yeah. It was said that when this was converted over to the PC, they had to do the dialogue. There were 8,000 lines of dialogue.
Oh
that goes to show you how much dialogue is in this game, because you've got to think they've got to do lines for every response, all the bad guys' responses, all the NPCs.
I mean, the conversation trees in this game are deep. It's not quite. I think I've never seen a game with more dialogue options than Cruise for a Corpse, but it's definitely up there.
Yeah. The game was a massive success, as you can imagine. And so pretty much after it was released for a little while, there were talks of a sequel. And there was a sequel planned for this game. But it was, believe it or not, it was killed. The original title of it was going to be Indiana Jones and the Iron Phoenix. Right? And it was going to be set after World War II and would feature Nazis seeking refuge in Bolivia, trying to resurrect Adolf Hitler. That was going to be the plan. And from what I read, German people, when they demoed the game, their German people were like, "Listen, this is going to go through extensive rewrites to be released in Germany because they've got
laws that prohibit
about that.
Stuff like that."
And so, and they also, LucasArts looked at the overall market. They knew Germany was going to be a big player in this game.
In fact, when I had my sealed copy of Maniac Mansion that I bought at a thrift store for $5 and sold for like $5.75, it was to a guy in Germany.
Really, $575? Wow, what a deal! Here's something I didn't know. I'd heard some of this stuff, but the plot that they were going to use for that game was actually turned into comic books. The Dark Horse of the series of comics.
Interesting.
And under the same name, and they were published in December '94 to March '95. And there's been several comic book adaptations. Another game that we're looking at doing was called Indiana Jones and the Spear of Destiny. and that was going to revolve around the Spear of Destiny. That's another game that ended up not happening, and it was also another game that got turned into a comic book series from April to July of '95. So this game, as big a seller as it was a million copy plus blockbuster. And now you can you can go to Steam and get it. I think Good Old Games has it. It's everywhere.
Yeah, I've got a copy of it that I got on a Humble Bundle. It was all the LucasArts games for like 99 cents.
Of course, the reviews on this game, as you can imagine, were off the freaking charts. If I can turn to my reviews page, there it is. So, Amiga actually gave it 91. Amiga Computing 88. Amiga Computing reviewed it again in '95. I love how they do this, and they revised their review down.
Yeah,
I always love that.
Yeah, somebody write in and tell us why that was.
It's funny. I'm looking at these reviews, and they almost all did the same thing. Like Amiga Format reviewed it in '93 and gave it a 92. Then they looked at it again in '95 and gave it a 90. So they revised it. So I guess the game got less good as it went on. And for whatever reason, they revived down. Now, that much said, it's looked upon now as an absolute classic. And I can remember when this was released, and it was released alongside Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, the action game that we talked about earlier. And the action game was widely regarded as no good, and it was made by the same outfit. So I don't know what happened there. This sort of plot with Atlantis and Nazis, it lends itself to the Scum engine, that type of game, like perfectly. I mean, really, you couldn't pick a better plot. The fact that someone sat down and wrote something that wasn't just competent but was good and interesting. And if you play through this, the one thing that I was worried about, having not played it for years, was I going to feel like Indiana Jones? And you do. That's the point. Especially when you're a kid, you want to be in it. I mean, every kid. I knew, my buddy Chad, Chad Wilcox, when the Indiana Jones movies came out, he went and got himself a hat and the whip and the leather coat and used to wear it around.
Oh, man. Does he still have
those? I called
him
Indiana Jones because he was the integrator. And I don't know if he still has it, but he looked like a big tubby geek with a Indiana Jones hat.
Yeah, I love it.
My buddy, I knew another guy who wore the coat and the hat and had the whip. And I remember he used to hit me with that whip. That sucker hurt, dude. He would try the tricks.
I was hanging around the wrong people. I should have been running with you and your crowd.
Well, you got to think. This was at the height of the craze. You came a little bit later, but I mean, I swear to you, on a stack of Bibles, I knew two different guys that dressed like Indiana Jones, wore the hat, and had the whips.
That's great.
And everyone wanted a whip. And before that, no one gave a crap about a whip, right? But after Indiana Jones, everybody had to get the whip, and the hat's cool looking, So it was really an American phenomenon for sure, and I'm assuming that most of the world it was just as popular. And the game lives up to the legacy of Indiana Jones quite nicely. Again, I'm not the best at these games, and I struggled through. But again, having played these other ones, it's just a matter of trying to do the right thing and say, okay, what do I need to do here? Where do I need to go to get this? Generally it was okay. It wasn't too difficult to figure it out. Early on. I'm sure as you get up there, it gets a lot more difficult. So I looked this up on eBay, and it ain't cheap, brother, if you know what I'm saying. These things were, and I was surprised there were so few, to be honest with you. I found one in the U.S. that's going, of course, these are all boxed, going for $70. All right. If you're in Italy, for whatever reason, in Italy there was one going for $106. In the UK, there were more of these. You got $81, $121, and $74. In France, you can get one for $82. So anyway it goes, you're up past $70 picking this up. And if you were looking to get a sealed copy or something, you'd probably be paying Maniac Mansion.
Yeah, I was going to say, it doesn't surprise me because this is both a very popular genre for people that collect these games. I'm sure that they came with elaborate packaging and the manual and stuff was cool. And also it's Indiana Jones, so you're going to get that whole segment of the population.
And I have to say, it can't be understated the fact that I really dug the plot. I watched some of the way past where I got it on videos to see what was going on, and it's a pretty interesting plot actually. And the tie-in with Atlantis, and the fact that he's with a psychic, the interaction between the psychic and Indy is cool. I really dug that, and she takes it seriously. You know, that's what makes it fun. But what it does is it sets up a lot of great dialogue.
Well, she takes it seriously because it might actually be real.
Hey, who you telling, buddy? I can read your mind right now. Blank slate.
Hey, you don't have to tell me.
It's like looking into the void. And some of the NPCs that are just lumbering around are amusing. Like I said, there's doormen and guards and just goofs, and there's other archaeologists, and they're all, and the Germans. They all have personalities.
I will say that this is it seems like it's a very, very long game.
It must be, because I mean, I stink at it, but I still played for hours and hours just to get where I got.
Because if you play it straight through, this long play that we're watching now, it's 3.5 or 4 hours, and that's not taking time to solve the puzzles or anything. So you get your money's worth when you bought it.
Absolutely, but I mean, I will say it seems pretty linear. I guess if you pick different ways to play,
I think this is the most non-linear of all point-and-click adventure games.
But I mean, still, once you know what you need, I mean, I guess they're all sort of like that. But you do have. I like the fact that, like, at one point, apparently, you could just tell the chick to get lost,
right?
Which is kind of cool. And or you can go the fisticuffs way. Again, that's a nice ad. You know, it gives you a little extra value, a little bang for your buck. It is a shame that they never made the sequels for these, because they could have just used this engine, put the new stuff in, and it probably would have been just fine. So, there you go. So, what'd you think overall? You dug it?
Overall, I like it. It's a good. It's not Flight of the Amazon Queen, but it's just below it.
It's awful pretty.
It is.
It really is gorgeously done.
And it's the closest. It's probably the closest video game I've ever played where it felt like I was playing the movie. I felt like this is encapsulating this character.
Yeah, because he goes a bunch of places and you get your map. And the MIDI music is not great, but it does. I mean, it does the job, and it gives you a good feeling. I mean, if you can imagine this on. I mean, again, the CD version is probably the way to play. In all honesty. Because you've got the better music and you've got the dialogue. The dialogue
you don't have to deal with swapping 11 discs in and out.
Oh, man. Like I said, I played the WHD load on this. I didn't even try. Usually I'll load up the GoTech, but I wasn't going not on 11 discs, brother. I'm not that adventurous.
You know, there were so many reviews I read on this on Lemon where they're like, I played this till I got to disc 10 and it was corrupted, so I never got to finish it. And so
that is the worst thing. That's the worst.
Has that happened to you before?
And honestly, since I didn't play too many games like this, there weren't usually that many discs. Also, on the PC, you were generally unloading to a hard drive.
That's true.
So on the Amiga, like, so I'm trying to think about what I would play that had that many. Trust me when I say this, I've played games that wouldn't load right, and it was just 2 discs, and it was just so infuriating. It should drive me nuts. I remember playing games where you would sometimes load. Those are the worst. The Coco was notorious for that with that drive. Sometimes it would work, sometimes it wouldn't. You're like, oh, man, it's frustrating. But, yeah, 11 discs is a lot. Another good reason to get the CD, that's for sure.
Yeah. All right, well, before we close this thing out, just a small plug for Amigathon 2018. If you haven't been yet, check out extralife.org and search for Amigathon. I'll put the link in the show notes as well. And make sure you set aside time on July 7th to watch us play at least 12 hours of Amiga games, if not more. So keep that in mind. I'd also like to mention that we have a Patreon account. If you enjoy our show, you can check us out at patreon.com/AmigosPodcasts. And I'd like to read the list of our Patreon supporters, Aaron. This time I'm going to do it in reverse order. But not just normal reverse order, total reverse order.
I don't know what that means.
That means last name first.
Do you have this memorized?
No.
So you're just going to read off a page?
I'm guaranteed to still mess it up, though.
You could trade a chimp to do that, can't you?
Barman Kjolbjorn.
Oh, okay.
Dawn at Pixels. Warns Jason. Coles Darren. Barracuda Brutal. Bingston Daniel. Humbertstad. Tommy Kim. Nelson Eric. THT. That one works both ways.
Oh, what's that called when you can do that?
It's called a palindrome.
There you go, bam.
Rulo Jonas, Bradley Adam, I messed up. Williams makes it difficult. Yeah, Williams Nan Josh, Crypt, The From Tapes, Jarvis Anthony, Styles Duncan, Harrington Paul, Jones Brian C, Hucker Gary, Vintage and Retro Brian's O, Battersby Adam, Denson Lane, Dowdy Brent, Vebke W Graham, Jarud Laurent, Catch a Dream, What's Chris?
You know, Catch a Dream is nice. I like that.
Yeah, that's his alter ego.
Oh.
Abbott Ravi, Hassal Christopher, 75 Blindo, Heland Edvin, Mortensen Slorgard Stefan, Norton Slotha, CTZ Figgy, Boy Dead Creepy, DeRocher Ricky, Perron Matthew, Marshall John, Lord Level, Tyler Donald, Kebab Allen, Keelan Leaf, Ross Dan.
I like Dead Boy Creepy.
Dead Boy Creepy.
Or is it
That's
no,
it.
was it Creepy Dead? No, it's be
Boy Dead Creepy.
Yeah, that's weird.
It is weird. Kind of like Creepy Dead Boy.
They're all
also
weird. Good job, I think.
Thank you. Thank you. So we are recording this in advance for sometime in the future. The schedule is still messed up in my mind, but the singing will return once we return to our normal schedule.
Oh, man.
So
Boy, is that a threat or a promise?
It's both all wrapped up into one delicious package.
Oh, man.
Aaron, next week we are going to play that crime-stopping classic, Lethal Weapon.
Oh, based on the film.
Based on the film. Yippee-ki-yay, mofo.
No. Oh, man.
All right, guys, we'll see you next week. Until then, adios.
Have you ever seen Die Hard?
No. Remember, I thought it was the same film as Lethal Weapon.
You got mental problems. All right, let's knock this out. It's 5 o'clock.
Oh, you don't have to tell me.
What, you're not enjoying this? You're not enjoying 4 consecutive hours of recording?
It's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure.
You cuss me out the second I walk out of here, don't you?
No.
That no good
I settle in.
Scumbag.
I settle in for another 4.5 hours of editing.
Thank you, Lob.
All right. So now we're going to do Insert Disc 2. You can talk about whatever you like, but we're going to start with some feedback from last week's Insert Disc 2.
All right.
Okay?
I'm just going to lounge back and just
take it in. Just absorb it. Are you enjoying that chair? It seems like it. Do you not like it?
It doesn't matter.
I bought it for you.
I can't believe you bought this chair for me. You should have done that. Don't buy me stuff. Don't buy me. You've got nothing to prove.
You sit in this chair every week. I want to make sure you're in comfort.
Listen, my butt will take care of me.
Okay. That's another good quote for the tombstone.
My butt took care of me.
Hey, Pixels.
You know what's on Leslie Nielsen's tombstone?
Oh, thank you, guys. What is on Leslie Nielsen's tombstone?
You know, he used to carry around a little fart machine with him. He loved that. He would use it to make people look stupid. Mm-hmm. On his tombstone, he demanded this was on there. It says "Let her rip." This is on his tombstone. I love Leslie. He's great.
I have seen Loaded Weapon.
Oh man, that one's not that good.
Yeah, it was a little silly.
And I love Leslie, so you know. All right, fire it up, bam.
Okay.
We need a little jaunty tune here. Bow, 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 bow.
There it was. There was the jaunty tune.
That's it?
Yeah. You should write the theme. Since I wrote the theme for ARG, you should write the theme for Insert Disc 2.
Okay. Boat sucks, boat sucks, boat sucks, boat sucks.
Okay. Feedback from our last Insert Disc 2.
I don't want to see feedback from the new one.
Scopy33 writes.
Who?
Scopy33.
Scopy?
Yeah, Scopy, frequent commenter.
Okay.
I still have my iMac from 2001 and refuses to die. I personally was glad that Apple ditched the disk drive as it was useless for a graphic designer anyway, as we were rocking the USB SyQuest drives at the time.
I had one of those too. I didn't have USB, I had a parallel version.
And just like we talked about, he agrees that it was a lot less hassle to get set up and internet ready right out of the box. This was a big selling point back then. When was the first time that you configured a computer for the internet?
It was one of mine. It was Doom related. Well, actually, it was for a network. It was Doom related. For the internet, which ran over the network, it was for me in Lexington. I was living with Wes and Jerry, so that would have been 96, 95, something like that. Yeah.
Was there Windsock, Trumpet Windsock?
Boy, I do remember fooling with it. I can't remember.
See, that's the kind of stuff that people bought an iMac because of that stuff. Because you took it out of the box.
It was nightmarish.
Yeah.
You're right.
Lobsterminator, who is with us in the chat right now, writes, I totally agree with Boat. I don't even need to read the rest of it.
About what?
That's all it means. Even in '88, the power users were dreaming that the Amiga would grow into the workstation that NeXT eventually became. NeXT was pretty much a failure, but without it, Apple would have died out later on because the old Mac OS was technically really obsolete. To succeed, Amiga would have probably also needed an OS that was Unix-based or close to Unix in security and network features. Amiga OS was too prone to system-level crashing to be a serious workstation. And then he says that it's the same sort of thing if Apple had not gotten beyond their normal 1 through 9, OS 1 through 9, and not made the jump to a Unix-based operating system like OS 10, they probably would have met the same fate as Amiga did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Perhaps. I remember when NeXT that was a big deal.
Oh yeah.
And they were it didn't go.
Well, they sold themselves. You know, they were developing these workstations that were tens of thousands of dollars, and nobody's got that kind of cash. I think that Sun was their main competitor, and they could undercut them because they were so large.
Sun was another one. They were the big rendering. Yeah. Silicon.
The next story is really interesting. To me, that's the most interesting part of the Steve Jobs story is his years at NeXT, because it was just so weird.
I think his sweaters were the most interesting story about him. He looked like a real creep. Am
I
wrong? Did he look?
He looked like a guy.
Is anyone creepier than that guy?
Than Steve
Remember
Jobs?
the Sprockets on Saturday Night Live? Now is the time when we dance. He looked like one of those guys. Just a weird, creepy.
So if you wear a black mock turtleneck sweater, then you're immediately creepy?
He looks creepy in the face. The sweater was part of it, but the face was part of it. He was just a weird, creepy guy. He may have been this incredible, insane genius, but he was creepy looking. You can't deny that.
Look
at a picture of him sometime.
I've seen Steve Jobs' face before as a former Apple employee.
Anyone in the chat room that's ever seen this guy, you tell me if he's not creepy. I guarantee that he is. Creepy dude. So what else you got?
We move on. Wezer. His first name Wes, last name Zer.
Wes.
Yeah, he says, I think if the Amiga was still dominant, Microsoft would have somehow insisted on implementing their stuff on the Amiga, or just bought Amiga completely. What do you think the chances of that were? Microsoft buying
I'd rather
Amiga.
be dead than have I'd rather be dead than have
You wouldn't
Microsoft
like to fire up your 1200 with Windows XP loading up on the desktop?
Absolutely not. In fact, that's one of the drawbacks from emulating the Amiga is it has to happen in the Windows environment. It just doesn't feel right to me. Because when I had the Amiga back in the day, I was emulating the MS-DOS. I was the boss.
Okay.
The worm turned.
So let's... Oh, and he says thumbs up for the Aussie, get ready for this, stubby holder, too.
Of course.
The stubby holder. Do you know what that is?
I don't.
That's your koozie. That's what they call them down under. The stubby holder.
This was a gift.
Yeah, it was a gift from Graham Vebke.
Graham Vebke.
Another man from around
We've
down
got a
under.
lot of nice gifts from Graham. He's a good guy.
He is a good guy. He got us this bourbon. The bourbon is gone.
I use this every time. Now, you'll recall, do you remember why you made me start using a koozie was because I kept clanging the glass.
Right. Now you're clang free since 2016.
I tell them, I always go, where the hell is my koozie, Bo?
You do. You demand it, even though we no longer need the koozie because we updated our microphones, but I'm glad that it still lives on.
Makes me feel like a big man if I've got the cool foreign koozie.
You don't need that to make you feel like a big man.
Hell, I need all I can get, honestly.
So I had something that I was going to talk about. Oh, I know what it was. So this is a serious question.
All right.
As somebody that does not spend a lot of time in the Amiga desktop environment on Workbench, as it were.
Well, I don't spend a whole lot of time.
Okay, well, you'll know enough to answer this question. Okay, so let's take the height of the Amiga was 1991. We looked at some sales figures on Discord.
All right.
So in 1991, what could you do on the Amiga Workbench that you could not do in a Windows environment?
Well, 91 is way before Windows 95 was released. So
True.
I'll tell you the first thing that blew me away.
Okay.
I'm sure I've mentioned this. I could open up Windows OS and I could format a disk and do something else. That in itself was amazing to me. On the PC, when you're in MS-DOS, you're doing one thing. You're formatting the disk. Now, Windows 3.1 and 3, people consider that Windows 3.1 and 3.1.1 were like the definitive early versions of Windows.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. But they were junky, and everyone I know that had a PC did not use Windows. before 3.1.1. No one did. And because it seemed pointless because most stuff ran out of DOS. I was a gamer, and so we all were juggling out of DOS. So no one really supported the Windows environment that I knew. None of the stuff I used. Mm-hmm. And I remember one of the first things I started using Windows exclusively for was email, and I was using a program called Eudora. Mm-hmm. That was a Windows-based email program.
I remember Eudora.
And there would be a game or something here or there that demanded that you use that demanded that you used Windows to run it. But those, I always hated those. You know, I remember like early version of Samurai Showdown was like that. They had a Windows version. Well, you know, it was so I just wouldn't even play those games. Where I mean, Amiga DOS, and listen, it's not perfect. This is an older version, but I mean, you could multitask for real.
Now, let me ask you a question. Could you open up Worms?
No. I know where you're going. No,
you couldn't do that.
There were some little programs that you could multitask in Windows and do other stuff, but Windows, for copy protection purposes, you could very few games where you could do two things at once.
No, I'm talking about on the Amiga.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Because most games didn't boot up through you had to put the disk in and boot it, and most games didn't support the hard drive.
So it just bypassed Workbench.
Do you remember DOS booters? DOS booters were the same way. You just put the disk in, you turn the computer on, it boot off the disk.
I don't think I ever had a game that did that.
Yeah, these are old DOS games that would do it. You know, like Commando and stuff. You put the DOS booter disk in and it would boot. And of course, the Amiga is clearly the same way. And like I said, due to the rampant piracy, you know, pirates like myself, we were the worst enemy. I mean, we're in America, it didn't matter. But still, if you weren't buying the stuff outright, you really were. I hate to admit it, but it's true. I mean, you killed the system in a number of ways. You killed it financially because you weren't buying the software, but you were also killing it from a usability perspective. You were adding these idiotic piracy checks. In fact, Indiana Jones had one. The Amiga would put these crazy disk-based protections in. You could even eliminated your ability to use like a second disk drive in a lot of games. You could use one drive. It was DF0 for every disk. There was no hard drive installation. There was no using other disk drives. So having that second drive, I remember when I got it, I'm like, I'm in good shape now. 2 drives. And when that thing popped up the first time and said, please insert disk 2 in the DF0, I was like, because a lot of those things didn't support the second drive. So you're literally, as a pirate, you were taking away the usability of your own computer. It's very, you feel like it's sort of an idiot now. It didn't occur to me at the time, but I mean, they had to cripple your own computer to try to keep you from pirating this stuff. And the hilarious thing is, the stuff you're playing that's crippled is pirated. So not only did it not work, but it also crippled the machine. So it was double trouble. Everyone lost, except for the pirated guy who didn't mind using the same disk drive over and over. So,
So did you remember doing anything that was, you mentioned formatting a disk while you were doing something else. But apart from that, can you think of any other time you were actively multitasking on the Amiga?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You could go online, for example. And surf BBSs and stuff like that. You could do stuff within the in the world of the OS, or play MP3, or not MP3s, but play like mod files. Mm-hmm. There was stuff, but am I going to load up like Shadow of the Beast? No, you're not.
Yeah, so that's interesting to me. So Amiga games didn't run in a window the way we think about modern PC games.
Very few.
Okay.
Most of them ran. Most of them, you just took the system. There was no multitasking. So effectively, what you had was a multitasking environment that you couldn't multitask on due to the, and some of it was memory constraints as well. Mm-hmm. You couldn't have the OS loaded up, and the game needed that extra memory.
Right.
You've got to consider that the Amiga's base memory was different over 3 or 4 different systems, and so you sort of had to cater to those different systems and their memory requirements. Which that's every PC of the day, but sometimes they would do it for memory. I'm sure memory concerns were part of it too. It still seemed light years ahead of what the PC guys were doing. If you compare Amiga OS to, say, an early version of Windows, I mean, the Amiga OS was pretty hardy. Mm-hmm. I think. for what I did for it. Now I wasn't doing anything heavy, but if just the ability to do a couple things, I didn't know what multitasking was. I came from an environment that was straight up DOS. Now my buddy had a thing called double DOS that would let you do like 2 things at once, but it was very remedial. Now and eventually the PC sort of caught up. They had a thing called the PC had different versions of OS environments that weren't Windows. OS2 Warp was the IBM's entry.
What about the DOS shell?
The DOS shell from Windows.
Yeah.
The problem with the DOS shell is it wasn't after Windows 98. The DOS shell wasn't a true. There was no true DOS. It was a simulation of DOS, and so it limited what could be done. Like in early versions of Windows, when you exited DOS, you were in DOS. There was a time though where after a certain point, you were never really in DOS. Windows was still lurking around. And Windows. Another thing is you got to remember back in the day, not to go too long on this, but you had a limited amount of space, hard drive space, and so now they want me to install a 7-disk program on that hard drive. All it does is just exist there. It's an operating environment. Well, you weren't too keen on it when you'd be used to running DOS that was like a disk or 2. You load it up, and I was like, okay, what benefit am I going to get from this? Well, it was good. Things ran slower, the games ran crappier, and nothing looked better. Why am I using this? At the time it didn't. Then eventually, and of course, this would have been you got to think in '95, the Amiga was pretty much done, and in the U.S. it was absolutely. And then here comes Windows 95. Well, Windows 95, it was a revolution. It was an evolutionary leap from 3.11, because Windows 95 was really the first modern Windows that you would recognize today. That was usable to a certain degree. So it was a pretty big deal. And then Windows was off and running at that point. Pretty much everything else was done at that point. And so you could do the multitasking stuff I could do on the Amiga. Okay, now I can do it with no problem.
Right.
And plus, you've got the added benefit of the speed and the more memory that you got.
It's interesting because coming at it from a Mac perspective, Macs could do all of this stuff as early as the Amiga could, but there were 99% of the population had never used a Mac. And
Mac, part of the Mac situation was the price.
Right.
The price was. I mean, maybe this is the same thing we're talking about the BBC Micros. The Macs were like, and whether this is true or not, from a usability standpoint, they were sort of like the Cadillac.
Oh yeah.
No one could afford these
especially in the going throughout pretty much the Amiga's most of its life in the early 90s. That's when the costs really started to spiral out of control, and Apple started losing tons of money. They were still making all these machines in the States. They were always made in the United States, and they were really good machines, but they just couldn't figure out how to make them cheap enough, and that's when they really started.
I never thought they tried to make them cheap. I thought they looked at their stuff like a boutique item. Oh, I still think they did.
I don't think so, because when you're losing as much money as they were losing in the mid 90s, they would do anything to get those things out the door. The problem was I
think they lost a lot of their base in the early days of the Mac due to the expense.
Well, that and the fact that some of the early Macs, the first Mac and the Mac 2, were insanely expensive and difficult. They weren't good computers. They didn't have enough RAM. They didn't have a built-in operating system, so you had to swap. You had to put in the operating system, start it up, and then when you wanted to put in a game or anything else, you had to take the system disk out, put in the game. A lot of times, then you'd have to take the game disk out, put the operating system disk back in. It was a real mess.
Now, what is that Mac I've got?
The Mac that you have comes from the early 90s, so that's one of the last 68,000 based Macs out there, and it was mostly used. It was designed for home use or educational use, so it wasn't the top end. But it's a good example. It's a solid example of what being a Mac user was like in say 1992 or 1993. But have you ever even powered it up and played with it?
Yeah. Weren't you there? Yeah, it works. Hard drive comes right up.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it works fine.
That's great.
It's got TV in capabilities as well. You can actually bring in a TV signal to it.
I think a lot of people look at the best Mac from the late 80s or early 90s is the SE30, which is still that compact all-in-one 9-inch black and white screen, but it's got a hard drive. It's really quick. You could expand it in all kinds of crazy ways. And then once they moved into the more modern machines like the one that you have, the problem they ran into was they were just infinitely differentiated. So there were like 16 models of almost the exact same computer, and nobody knew which machine to buy.
Yeah.
And that's why when Steve Jobs came back, that was the best move that he made, was say, we've got 4 computers now. We've got 2 laptops, a Pro and a not Pro, and then 2 desktops, a Pro and a not Pro.
It's funny because one thing, the Mac, of course, you've got they're their own world, and so Apple decides what machines, how much, how many variants, right? The PC world, you would think that would be an advantage to the Mac, and in some ways it is. The PC world was so crazily splintered. I mean, you've got a x86, and let's say you've got a standard amount of memory, 4 meg at the time or whatever, maybe a 20 meg hard drive. But I mean, after that, you could have any number of audio or video cards, and for better or for worse, mostly for better, I think that one of the advantages that the PC had was the easy expandability. Plus, since you've got a wider user base, you're going to get more people making more stuff for it. But the Mac, that's why when we talked about what the Amiga would be like today, I think it would be like the Mac in the same way that there are advantages to having that closed walled garden, is that you control, and I mean, the Amiga, granted, they had a million wacky peripherals, but when you boil it down, there's a bare minimum that every Amiga's got. There's a chipset that every Amiga at least has the bare minimum of, and so you've got a starting point. Where on the PC, you can have a PC with a Hercules card, you can have a PC with a Super VGA card, you can have a PC with an all-in-one, super card. You never knew. You never knew. Did it have Ad-Lib? Did it have Roland? Did it have Sound Blaster? Right. And so there are advantages to having a little environment to work with. But I think economically, from a market standpoint, the PC was a more attractive platform for manufacturing and for software designers, because they had they could set games with a higher, say, minimum standards and whatnot, and they knew that people could do it easily. It wouldn't be that big a deal, and it would drive sales of video.
We come at it from a perspective of gaming.
Yes.
And so you're never going to, even people that are the most die-hard Mac fanboys of all time, they're going to say, yeah, the Mac is not, if you're a gamer, the Mac was never designed to play games. Like Steve didn't even want that tile sliding game on the first Mac. He wanted it to be a business. The Apple II was the gaming thing, And so Apple has never cared about video cards the same way that the PC has, because at the end of the day, unless you're doing 3D video rendering, it doesn't matter what video card you have. You can run Photoshop all day long. You can run all the spreadsheets you want. You can do almost anything without an external video card.
I think the change came when, I think that's no longer the case, clearly due to the manipulation of video, for example. That's going to take a lot stronger.
I have integrated graphics on my i3 PC, and I've rendered Amigos
but you're going to run into, depending on what you're doing, you're going to run into limitations that an advanced. Listen, the current Macs have a pretty advanced video chipset in them.
Oh yeah.
But everything hits a wall, and if there's not the expandability there, then you get a problem.
Yeah, and that's one of the.
And the Macs weren't as expandable as a PC.
Right.
I mean.
Right, but if you look at like back in the day. Like when was the first time that like on the Amiga, there's no upgrading the video card.
There aren't. Yeah, you can on some of the Amigas, the ones that have Zorro slots. You can upgrade the video.
Okay, but but was that something that that Commodore made for the Amiga, or was it
insanely expensive?
Was it a third party?
I don't know if Commodore ever produced anything. I'm not sure.
But it would be interesting to know.
Again, like the Mac.
Yeah, it would be interesting to know how many people were using those updated Zorro cards, and for what applications.
I would say the percentage was low. I would say it's low. Now, again, the Amiga was involved in a lot of video production at the time, so you don't know what was, what they used for that sort of thing. But I mean, much like the Mac, I'd say it's a low number of your average user. Most of the people I knew that were in the Macs, they almost all did publishing.
Right.
That was what it was known for. It was good. It had the Adobe suite of utilities.
Right, and it also, you can't discount the fact that the Mac had the first commercially available laser printer that wasn't the size of a house, that you could buy at a store that didn't cost an arm and a leg, and that opened the door for every school in the country to have their own, basically print shop.
I've never heard that. It's strange to me that first of all, I didn't know Mac led the way in that.
Look it up.
I'm not saying you're wrong. It just strikes me as odd.
Yeah, here, a lot of people don't know that aren't real into Apple history. The laser writer, that's the name of the printer.
It's odd that a peripheral would be Mac exclusive. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah.
It couldn't be used on a PC?
I have no idea, actually, but yeah, the laser writer was the first.
Who made it? Did Apple actually produce it?
Yeah. The same thing with the digital camera. They had the first commercially available, not crazy expensive digital camera, the QuickTake.
That's the other thing that surprises me. It was an Apple-based peripheral that wasn't crazily expensive.
Right. If you look at LGR has reviewed both of these, and he says the exact same words because they were very reasonably priced. And it was, Apple, I guess, they have a reputation for being expensive, and some of their stuff is expensive, but I've never found them to be crazy expensive compared to the PC.
I disagree with that wholeheartedly. Just look at the price of just one of their computers. The PC equivalent would be would be ridiculously cheaper. Now, that said, you are not just buying the hardware, you are buying the Mac Apple environment. Therein lies the extra expense, presumably. Also, you're getting the glamour and everyone knows that you got a Mac. I guess.
You're getting a whole package. You're not getting a system that you have to buy a lot of extra software for if you want to get into creative stuff. It comes with a great video editor that is miles beyond. I'm falling into my pitch when I used to work at Apple.
You are, because I'm going to disagree with you on this too.
Well, don't disagree too fast because I'm not sure how much you've used the stuff that's come with a Mac.
Yeah, I guarantee you, if you show me a current day Mac, current day.
Okay.
Now there's a time where this would have been a different story. But having looked and read a lot about what's the current offer, and you've got to admit this, even you, that they have been very lax in their Mac
they don't
production.
Care. I guess I'm thinking about this from the time that I was there, which has been 15 years ago.
That's right. Now that's a whole different story. I'm not going to go down. I'm not going to fight that battle. But they don't care that much about the Mac line.
Well, it's not. The Mac is not making them money. It's just causing them problems. They are the iPhone company.
It's got to be. This is the point where they've got to be. If you're a Mac user from old school, it's probably irritating.
Oh yeah, I listen to podcasts every week where people just endlessly complain about how Apple doesn't care about them anymore, and that's part of the reason why I stopped using a Mac. Is I wasn't happy with the way that they were trying to make their computers more like the phones, and it seemed like they were dumbing down the desktop experience to make it more iOS-like. So
well, all Apple products have a. Apple has done one. They're very good at not only protecting their brand, but making their brand appear high end.
Oh yeah,
and sexy and obtainable if you have a certain level of money. That's what they do, and very stylish.
Yeah. So well, they've got the best. I think that they've consistently had one of the best to teams. You look at it. You look at what Dell. Remember the dude? You're getting a Dell guy. That was the PC's response. To.
I'll tell you what. Just to summarize, I was reading an article today about ticket sales for wrestling, and they said one day when Vince McMahon took over the WWF, they took their pricing, and they started charging triple or 5 times the amount of money for the tickets, and they noted, and people were like, "You're an idiot. You're going to get killed." And they noticed that ticket prices and income went way up, right? Because people at that point, they weren't going to a wrestling show; they were going to a premium event, priced to let you know that you were going to something that was special.
Sure.
And that worked, you know. And so it was the same event, But so there's something to it.
Vince he's no dumb cookie. He knows how to make money.
Yeah, and that's a whole other. Next time we do one of these, it's time to talk about the WWF and their stock market value. Right, that'll be the next trip out.
All right, guys. Look forward to that on an upcoming Insert Disc 2. Thanks, guys, for hanging out with us here in the chat for the last 4 hours or so. Edvin, thank you. Paul Harrington, Lobs Terminator, Necronom, Pixels at Dawn. Hey, I'm glad you made it safe to Seattle. Enjoy your time in the States.
Hope it didn't rain, man.
Yeah.
Man, we've had a ton of people
Ricky
in here.
DeRocher, thank you. Duncan Styles. Treyguard, thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us, and we will see you next time. Adios.